The men who qualify, they will receive exceptional wages. Only experienced truck drivers willing to risk their life can do it. No one else should apply.
The 1970s was a great time to be an auteur filmmaker in the new Hollywood era. Some of the greatest American filmmakers blossomed in the 1970s after the collapse of the studio system and Hays Code gave directors new freedom they had never experienced. A new generation took hold of that freedom to make art which has never been possible under a fairly restrictive regime. Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg all made incredible work during this time period. One of the most versatile and hardworking of these new Hollywood directors was Billy Friedkin. After flailing around at first trying to find a niche in documentary filmmaking and art films, Friedkin burst into the scene in 1971 with The French Connection.
You ever been in Poughkeepsie? Huh? Have you ever been in Poughkeepsie?
Hey, man, come on, give me a break. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me hear you say it. Come on. Have you ever been in Poughkeepsie? You've been in Poughkeepsie, haven't you?
The French Connection took home 5 Oscars, including Best Actor for Gene Hackman and Best Director for Friedkin. His next entry couldn't have been more different. Showcasing how varied his talents could be, Friedkin took on The Exorcist. It couldn't have been a more controversial choice, earning both rave reviews, disgust and condemnation, especially by Catholics, although the Vatican no longer had the clout to stop it from being made, and became the highest-grossing movie of 1973. A rarity for horror movies, Friedkin got 10 Oscar nominations, including for Best Picture, but only ended up taking home Best Adapted Screenplay. Tonight we are talking about a far more often ignored, and at least at the time, critically panned entry in Friedkin's output. We're going to be talking about 1977's Sorcerer. One of the many controversies surrounding this movie is that it's widely understood to be a remake of The Wages of Fear. The Wages of Fear was a 1953 French thriller by Henri Georges Clouzot. One of the most shocking French films of the 1950s, it was the story of 4 Europeans that get hired by an American oil company in Latin America. After an oil will get set on fire, they must travel 300 miles or 500 kilometers to the oil fields with an incredibly volatile nitroglycerin in trucks to cap it and put it out. The controversy is that, despite dedicating it to Clouzot and The Wages of Fear being one of his favorite movies, Friedkin claims it is not a remake. Billy Friedkin calls it a reimagining and thinks the films are significantly different. Friedkin imagines a similar plot outline, but with all new characters and a far grittier documentary style. As Sorcerer has gotten reevaluated and looked at with some distance, some critics have wondered if the original distaste for Sorcerer comes from the belief that Friedkin should not have reimagined a French classic. Ironically, some might say once again touching a sacrilegious project. Around the same time that the crew left for the Dominican Republic, Francis Ford Coppola was leaving for the Philippines to shoot Apocalypse Now. It's been speculated that part of Friedkin's decision to turn Sorcerer from the side project into a big-budget movie he'd throw himself into was that he wanted the jungle epic like Apocalypse Now was rumored to be. Coppola's 4-month proposed shoot in the Philippines would turn into a 2-year epic that almost killed him as he turned into a Colonel Kurtz-like beast. Billy Friedkin's journey into the Dominican Republic is similarly legendary. Friedkin ended up replacing the entire film crew after getting into a dispute with cinematographer Dick Bush, and also the on-set Teamsters representative, which meant replacing the trucking crew. Many crew members got food poisoning, gangrene, injuries, and malaria. At least 50 people had to be replaced. Billy Friedkin was diagnosed with malaria after the shoot and had lost 50 pounds. In Mexico, an undercover agent found many of the crew members had drugs, and they needed to be replaced. The movie has sequences shot in Jerusalem, New Mexico, Paris, and Veracruz as vignettes that were all shot on location. The bulk of the film, though, was shot in the Dominican Republic after Charles Bloodhorn, who was an oil billionaire that owned Gulf and Western and had purchased Paramount, invited Friedkin to shoot on location. Gulf and Western had become one of the largest employers in the country after purchasing the La Romana Free Zone, which in 1976 was the subject of intense scrutiny. This, somewhat hilariously, led to even more controversy.
Aren't in this country terrorists who blow up American oil wells are heroes?
We're paying that government to give us protection.
Our president cannot risk his liberal image by sending his troops to chase patriots.
Friedkin's reimagining of The Wages of Fear looks at the American business role in Latin America and the exploitation of workers. 4 men, fleeing different crimes, end up in a remote village in Colombia. The main character is an Irish gangster from New Jersey named Jackie Scallan. Friedkin imagined this role played by Steve McQueen, but after McQueen backed out and several other actors passed on it, Friedkin hired Roy Snyder. Roy Snyder had worked on The French Connection as Popeye Doyle's partner, but had since found huge acclaim with Jaws.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
We also get Victor Manzan, a French banker who is accused of falsely representing 15 million francs in collateral, a Palestinian political terrorist named Qassem, and a Mexican assassin named Nilo. They all end up in a small Colombian village working for an American oil company for barely any money. There is no difference between their exploitation and the exploitation of the massive Colombians also employed. An oil well explodes, and though anti-gringo terrorism is suspected, it cannot be proven, and it's reported as an accident. This is where one of the biggest controversies came into play. The company is very clearly Gulf and Western. Friedkin infuriated Bloodhorn by even having him on the wall in the background in a corporate photo. 35 years later, in 2013, Friedkin would sue Paramount for not allowing him to screen the film. Like in The Wages of Fear, the only way to put out the fire caused by the explosion is nitroglycerin. However, this nitroglycerin has been improperly stored and so is so unstable that any bit of vibration could detonate all of it.
It sits for a long time without being turned up. Liquid nitro seeps out of the sticks and into the bag. If you give those cases any kind of a bump, it will blow.
Our 4 protagonists are hired and offered higher wages at a time when everyone is living in poverty in the village to drive the nitroglycerin in trucks over rough and treacherous terrain 200 kilometers to the oil field. Friedkin and screenwriter Wallen Green wanted to examine American business and its relationship with exploitation in Latin America. I think we get a devastating but ultimately uneven look into the life faced by workers in the Dominican, in Colombia.
That means you don't think all the trucks will make it. One of us is a bagger.
We want double and legal residence, or we don't try.
You leave in 4 hours.
In retrospect, it's been speculated about why this film failed critically and commercially at the time. It is now largely viewed positively by critics. One reason, personally posited by Friedkin, is that Sorcerer was an ill-advised Exorcist reference that seemed cool at the time, but later he realized it may have disappointed audiences when they learned that they weren't watching an Exorcist sequel or spin-off. A second, and much larger reason, quite literally, is that Paramount opened it against Star Wars: A New Hope.
Star Wars has been a good luck charm for theaters throughout the country. The movie made $2.6 million nationally during the first 3 days it played.
And the prestige of being able to say seeing Star Wars is something akin to royalty, really.
Star Wars cost $9 million to produce. It will bring in at least 10 times that amount. As a result, the price of 20th Century Fox stock has doubled in the last 2 weeks.
Billy Friedkin's Sorcerer was literally caught in a tractor beam and swallowed whole by George Lucas's Death Star. Many critics see the failure of Sorcerer as the official moment the blockbuster film finally eclipsed the auteur cinema experiment. Billy Friedkin still sees Sorcerer as his best work and the film that came closest to his original vision.
You ever think of going to Managua?
Managua? Shit, there's no way I can go to Managua.
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, let me say, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live show, send us a super chat. We are absolutely obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer it. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are available on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, comic designer, and artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza and Bad Takes. Conan Neutron, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, host of Britonic Reversal, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends. Adam Kozak is an electronic recording artist who makes music often inspired by old movies under the name Burial Grid. His album Music for No Tomorrow is available now on Bandcamp. I, of course, am your host, Forrest Miller, wandering Ronin of the podcast panel and samurai of the clip cutting school. Without further ado, let's get started.
Indeed. Nobody
I
wants to talk anymore. It's true.
I messed it up. It's Roy Scheider. It's not Roy Schneider. But I had a kid in my
Roy
high school.
Sharder.
I had a kid in my high school that was named named Ben Schneider. So I think I messed up the two names in my head. I can't Roy Scheider it anymore. Nobody wants to truck anymore. It's true.
I kind of feel like Roy Scheider there's a little bit of like the Berenstain Bears thing going on there.
Yeah. I mean, especially
everyone pronounced it Schneider. So
yeah, I mean, is it Bernstein Bears? Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't. I think that
yes, the Woodward and Bernstein Bears. Who can forget that classic children's entertainment? Yes. Remember when they broke the Watergate story? Is very.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Woodward and Bernstein Bears break Watergate is my favorite children's kids book. They would read it, and then Richard Nixon would pop up and scream about not being a crook, and they'd pour honey on his head and be like, "Get out of here, fucking Richard Nixon."
I remember that video of Nelson Mandela dying, and it just fell from his fingertips.
We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
So, but that guy was a pretty reasonable big deal at that time. I mean, like, Jaws, this one, like he was like going to be like, he was like the big screen idol. Like
apparently he got
leading man guy.
He was going full like drama queen or whatever, like diva, I guess, on set on this one, which he had not done on the French Connection because he wasn't a big star yet. But he got fucking booked on this one, and he's like, running around complaining about the Dominican Republic, complaining about malaria and the gangrene. I feel like you have a lot of cause to complain on this movie. Like, this is a
Weinstein Bears. No, we do not want. Well, and the whole reason Billy Friedkin wanted to work with him again because he's like, he would basically do anything. He would like do anything I asked him to do, and like didn't complain at all. And then he definitely got more prima donna.
He complained, but he still did anything Billy Friedkin.
But he still did it, yeah. But what's funny is that like who he originally had in mind was Steve McQueen. And Steve McQueen was like super into it, but he insisted that Ally McGraw's main squeeze come with, and was like, can we just get her like an executive producer credit or like find a small role for her? Which of course there's no women in this movie. There's barely any women in Wages of Fear. There's one, and it's Henry Clouseau's wife. Who's awesome because he's also in Diabolique, so he's got a thing that he does. Like
he gets her thrown off a truck. It's pretty.
So it's like the idea of like I'm sure like Ally McGraw would bring some star power, but like Friedkin was like super annoyed. Like, no, we can't just bring her in to do nothing. No,
what is she gonna be? The truck? Is your wife?
Very pretty truck, but
he was also trying to just film in L.A. Like, imagine them trying to film this in like a Universal back lot or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. I mean, especially with what he was trying to do with it. Because whether he's, by the way, can I just say he doesn't think it's a remake of Wages of Fear? Dog, it's a remake of Wages of Fear.
Well, so his argument about this is that
it's closer to the book. I know the argument.
No, it's not that it's closer to the book. He said that he changed the characters. It's different.
Yeah, he gave them a backstory that nobody cares about. Nobody cares about the back. Like when you're watching Wages of Fear,
he flew to 4 continents to film that backstory.
To film the backstory. Yeah. When you're watching Wages of Fear, I guarantee you, at no point you're like, I wonder how these guys got to be that place, because it doesn't matter. The way Wages of Fear is better is that like it shows how they interact now.
I do like watching. In this very desperate world. I like watching Palestinian terrorists escape, though.
Yes.
And blow stuff up in Israel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Not a big Israel
Yep.
guy. That was
PLO.
a cool opening to this movie. But
Yeah,
then
I mean, I'm not saying it's
yeah.
not filmed well. I'm just saying the
But then he lets
focus
the
it's put
banker
on it.
escape, and then I'm like, "Yo, dog, lock that banker up."
But regardless of the actual story, as well done as they are, it means that it takes an interminable amount of time to get to the action, which I'm not a big, like, let's get to the fireworks factory guy necessarily. But when you compare the pacing of Wages of Fear, which is also slow, versus Sorcerer, look, when it gets there, but it takes a while. It takes a while to get there. And I feel like it seems more disjointed. It's like, all right, now they're driving trucks. Whereas within Wages of Fear, it's like, it's way more like built into, like, you know, they're talking about like driving and this and like, and it's just, there's something about them just being centered only in that location, and everyone has a backstory, and it doesn't matter because they're all stuck together, that I really like personally.
But I do like that he made them go all the way to Jerusalem and then Paris and then Veracruz and then like
flex.
Yeah, like he got them to actually fly there, film for like a couple days, and then go to each new place. Like the fact that it's filmed on 4 continents, but you don't know that watching it. It could be anywhere. You know what I mean? Like,
it could be a set.
That could be filmed on the fucking Universal lot. Like,
where was the Veracruz scene actually filmed?
In Veracruz.
And it's like that bro just comes in and shoots a guy, and it's like that could literally be anywhere.
It's literally,
and I timed it out. It's literally, I think it's literally like 30 seconds. He walks, he takes the elevator, he walks in, he puts his gun up. It's a cool shot. I like the shot a lot, but yeah, you don't need to go to Veracruz for that shot.
It's kind of like
Dick Bush did a great job with that shot, though.
Good old Dick Bush, yeah. But okay, so yeah, and it took me basically 3 minutes to bring in Wages of Fear, but it is interesting watching kind of like 2 different versions of the same story, because he focuses on different things, right?
I like the Wages of Fear started like the main character's name was Mario, and then Dude's Rock, his fucking roommate was named Luigi. Yeah.
I purposely didn't say anything about that because I remember the bit that basically dominated most of Escape from New York in the back half.
It's a me, Wages of a Fear.
But like it's interesting because it's not like, so personally I prefer Wages of Fear, but Sorcerer, like when it gets to the action, like, I mean, look, I guess we can just get right to it. We can get to the fireworks factor of this conversation. Holy shit, the bridge scene.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean,
and Wages of Fear isn't comparable, I think, to that one scene.
No, they don't. No. But
like that scene is anxiety wrenching. Like I remember kind of being like distracted for a second, and then looking back, and they were on the bridge, and be like, okay, I need to just like laser focus onto the focus, and like you feel like you're on like the camera's moving enough, and
and you see like the truck like tipping and stuff, it's like, oh my god. And well, first of all, even when things are going great, they're like, all right, they're driving over these boards that barely support the weight, and like they're crunching, and like everything about it is, we'll just charitably say, ill-advised. And then like when our French banker bro like doesn't see the other guy like fall down. He's like, hey, what's going on? It's like, dude, you're about to run him over on a bridge in a gigantic truck. Like it's absolutely insane. Like that part of it, Friedkin absolutely like insanely does an amazing job. Here's what's crazy. Like that is all like movie magic, because even though it's filmed on location, the original location they built that crazy bridge to all its suspension stuff. By the time they got it going, the riverbed was like totally dry. And they had to move to a different river, which also went dry. And then they had to basically like fake the flood and like fake like the rain and everything, which is absolutely crazy. Cause that's like, dog, you could have done that on a set.
I think that's what cracked his relationship eventually with Dick Bush. You know, things went down with Dick Bush. Dick Bush and him, you know, they weren't getting along down there. And you know, he ended up firing the entire camera crew at one point.
And it's crazy because it's like this was a really big budget. And you mentioned something in the intro too about well, first of all, opening against Star Wars is the real reason, right? I mean, like, hello, like that's not telling any tales out of school. But the reason why I didn't watch this for like years is because of the name. I'm like, I don't need to see that. Like, I like The Exorcist, I don't need to see that. And then I was like, oh, it's not like a supernatural thing. Oh, all right. And then someone's like, oh, it's a remake of Wages of Fear. I'm like, what? And which apparently he doesn't think it is, but okay, fine.
And the opening title credit makes you think it's going to be something supernatural too, because the opening title credit has like that weird skull thing that you're like,
and you got
oh,
that
cool.
crazy Tangerine Dream score.
Yeah, and you're like, is this gonna be a like a movie where they all get something cursed and they have to drive the trucks?
Yeah.
To get and then you're like, no, it's not that at all.
It's just literally dudes driving trucks. It's I think the name did hurt it.
Yes, but the nice thing about this movie is that the trucks also have personalities of their own too.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the Decatur thing, right? Like because there's a big thing culturally where like you decorate your truck, you give it personality, you give it panache. It's been carried forward now with like these passenger buses that they.
Oh, is that a cultural thing? I just thought they really like Transformers.
They're competing each other. Where like the goal is to have the most blinged out bus, so that like when people.
But the thing is though is as a viewer you could tell which truck is which, because if they remade this today, the trucks would be identical or virtually identical.
Which they were in
and I get that it's named after the truck. It's not that I don't understand that. I just think it's a bad move and it's a bad name, and I hurt the movie. And
like Wages of Fear, you can't really tell. I mean, you can tell the difference between the truck because they're like so box shaped at that point. Like you can see who's in it.
If it wasn't for Mario looking like an ethnic stereotype, you'd hardly be able to tell the difference between the dudes.
Well, there's the one guy. The one guy is blonde. I like that they have a blonde guy in there. The blonde guy really, I like watching it. I'm like, oh, it's the guy that looks like fucking the dude from Fargo when it's driving with fucking Steve Buscemi. Like,
well, and the last thing I'll say is that culturally it does work too, because again, like the modern version of this is the Decatur, which are the passenger buses I started talking about, where they each kind of try to outdo each other by like looking flashier. And the idea is like if you're going to be stuck doing something that you don't want to do, then you should be doing it in style. You should be doing panache. You should put some artistry into it, which I think is very interesting. But go ahead.
What I want to know is the Gulf and Western guy, right? Invites them to film down there a movie about a fucking oil company, like an American oil company, and like how did he?
And gets mad for being basically in it. Yeah, where it's like, yo, did you read the book or see the original movie? Like. It's all there, buddy. He was
trying to get everybody to film down there.
Who do you think is paying the wages in the Wages of Fear?
But he was trying to nobody, because it's they can kind of get away with that because it's a free zone. But everybody is extra free there, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
Adam,
I think you wanted to break in a little earlier. What were you gonna?
Oh God, I can't remember. I think I was just going to say Friedkin himself completely regretted naming it Sorcerer. And I was going to mention where you see like the sort of the glyph, or it wasn't even a glyph. It was like the sort of face inlaid into the stone.
Yeah, the carving.
That almost feels like a callback to The Exorcist with like the Pazuzu statue in the beginning, and
I think it was supposed to, like, he was trying to do an homage to his own his last movie, which you never want to do an homage to yourself,
which is asinine.
But this is from the conversation about the bridge. So this is the guy from Drive interviewing
Refik, who's also done. He's also done
that interview. Oh,
yeah, this is an amazing one.
Yeah.
He's done a bunch of other things as well. I actually just watched the first episode of Copenhagen Cowboy, which is his newest thing, last night, because I figured you might play this clip. But he also did
I have a bunch of clips.
Young. He did.
I have a bunch of clips from this because the entire conversation is about Sorcerer and they go into it. So this is the
I think I know the one you're gonna play, and I can't wait to see it.
No, I saw that one yet, but this is the one about the bridge where they're talking about filming on there.
I got a lot of NWR thoughts.
I feel like the last one I play is gonna be
Bronson and Only God Forgives. Those are the two.
Him completely stunning the guy. Just
yes.
Okay. So you shot this movie on film, obviously. Was that difficult?
Yeah, there was no
in the jungle.
digital.
Was it challenging?
Yeah, of course, because in the jungle you have sometimes bright sun, and sometimes you have a cloudy day.
Right.
And usually you get both in the course of the same day.
Right.
And so lighting in the jungle is difficult. The bridge scene, which is one of the most difficult scenes I think that may ever have been filmed, as far as I know.
Did you actually put the trucks on the bridge?
Yeah, of course.
Because that's one of the amazing things when I rewatched it, was that seeing those metal machines on that, like even getting them out there. And there were there stuntmen or were there the actors?
Both.
Okay, so
the actors are there's no opticals in the film.
Okay.
The actors are, when you see them driving the trucks, they're driving the trucks.
When would you use stunt
mostly for
people?
the close-ups?
And when would you use stunt people?
In the long shots. when
Okay,
you
so you would
couldn't
use
see
stunt.
who
Okay.
is. And the stunt coordinator was Bud Eakins, who was McQueen's
Right.
stunt double and stunt
Because
coordinator.
that bridge scene is the editorial, especially when he falls underwater, the use of sound going away, it's magical. It's absolutely
Well, thank you.
magnificent.
Thank
It's
you.
absolutely, it's untouchable. Again, it's so
I
well
know it's
made.
a good scene.
It's an
I know
incredible. It's
that.
not. It's an incredible scene.
It was fun to do.
Right.
And understand this, I never take a script with me when I shoot a scene. It's in my head.
Right.
I did not have a storyboard for the bridge scene, but I had all of it in my mind's eye.
Right.
I had everything. I saw the movie in my head, and so going out to film it was only difficult from a physical standpoint, not from the standpoint of what to do when. I knew how I was going to start that scene, end that scene, what the individual moments would be, and I just went out and filmed what was in my mind's eye.
And another thing that I admire about the script and the movie itself is the lack of dialogue.
Except in the first...
yeah, but being someone who makes movies with very little dialogue, I saw a kindred spirit here again, that it's all told through visuals. Almost like a silent film, the mood, style,
I'll tell you
camera.
why I decided to do that.
Right. Was there more dialogue originally in the script?
No.
Okay.
In Indonesia, when The Exorcist or French Connection played there, it would be run on a screen, very often a sheet that was set up on the wall in some store, and they had a projector, and they'd run the film in various parts of the world, but I remember Indonesia. And they could not afford any subtitles there for the film. They only could get like an American version or a French dubbed version, but they couldn't get one in the language of these particular countries. What would happen is that every 5 minutes or so, they'd stop the projector and a guy would walk out and explain to the audience what they had just seen. And I made a promise to myself that the next film I made would not have to be stopped by a projectionist in Indonesia where a guy had to explain to the audience what they were watching.
So you were
I was
thinking
going
of-
to make a film that you could understand it just by watching it.
So courtesy of the Indonesian people, this movie was going to reach the widest audience around the world.
That's what I had hoped for as a way of reaching audiences.
Okay.
Look, the greatest cinema to me was made in the silent era.
Right.
And you could run Buster Keaton's movies or Charlie Chaplin or D.W. Griffith's films anywhere, and people knew what was going on.
Were you megalomania when you were making the movie?
I don't know what that word means.
Okay, but were you all consuming? Were
Yeah,
you
probably.
basically world dominance, that this was going to play every
No,
single word?
it's just a movie. All I was a movie director who had a concept and was bound and determined to fulfill that concept.
Yes, but this is
Not
looking back.
rule the
back
world.
Then it seems like you wanted to rule the world.
No, never. I don't have these fantasies that you have. Why do you attribute your fantasies to me?
I'm just trying to look what I'm going to be like. So I'm thinking ahead.
Well, you better get your head straight because you can get it chopped off.
And that's what happened to you?
Well, to a great extent, sure.
Oh man, that is like
vicious.
Yeah.
Wow.
Chekhov's gun there.
He keeps being like the entire interview, and we'll see more clips of the interview, but like he keeps being like, I'm just like you. I'm gonna be you one day.
And he like snaps. He's like,
at the end of it, he fucking
Well, if you're gonna play it, we don't need to reenact it. But yeah, it's
so good.
I will say this in reference defense. I've been in situations where it was pitched as like, oh, you guys are interviewing each other, you're talking to each other, And then like it's made very clear later on that like that is not the case. Like the other person does not know that or refuses to engage with it. So you have to kind of pivot and like it's like, oh no, this is like I'm interviewing you. Okay.
But I mean, if you have Billy Friedkin there, like I think he dominates this. Like,
he's definitely compensating. Like he definitely big ups himself a little bit too much. And again, if you want to talk about Chekhov's gun, but like but to talk about the content of it though, like it is interesting to see what he's focusing on because as a filmmaker himself, of course. I mean, the sound design of this is incredible. You know, like I mean, they did a restoration of this. It was pretty cool before, but like the color and like taking full advantage of like, you know, the jungle and like, this is a wet movie when it's wet. Like it is, you know what I mean? Like,
like it's like his least favorite movie because he doesn't understand that.
all right. Take a drink. But yeah, like it's like you feel it. And that's part of the reason that like makes those bridge scenes so engaging.
That's a wet ass movie.
Okay, all right. Can we get the show back on track, please, for like a hot second?
It's just you're right, but it's a funny like describing a movie as wet is kind of funny to me. It is like the design of it, the visual design is very wet. It is.
Yeah. You know, I'm
gonna pull Friedkin out.
Tweeted out retweeted somebody who posted an old ad she did, and she apologized for using the word "moist" so much in it. But I do think "moist" is also a good descriptor of this film.
Yeah,
and
I don't even think this movie's moist. This movie is straight up wet. Like the rain hits the camera like constantly. Like you're immersed in the actual jungle experience.
I mean, sweat's dripping off noses.
I mean, that's the thing, like the entire like second half of the movie, like all of the trials and tribulations that they run into, you know, which is, it's almost like this, it's almost just like Murphy's Law, like pushed to like the most extreme degree. And yeah, I mean, like even the rain, it's coming down in like fucking sheets.
Like diagonally.
Yeah,
like,
it's absurd. There's like almost
which is really hard to watch in some like there are some movies where it rains and you can see like the rain hit the camera and stuff and it's like it's very hard to like engage with that. Some filmmakers do it as like a stylistic thing, but this movie I think it just poured so much rain on you at some point that you're kind of immersed in it enough that it doesn't really do that to you. You're like, all right, I guess like I can't tell half the time what the fuck is going on, but like that is also what the characters are experiencing.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually feels almost as supernatural as The Exorcist because, I mean, it's a movie, it's entirely about fate and how little control we have over our own destinies and, you know, and like that second half of them, it's just so over the top.
Like when the trees come from upriver and like crush him against the truck and you're like, oh my god, like what's happening? Like it's insane when you know what's coming. You're like, oh,
you know,
and you just see him like literally like pinned and you're like, holy crap, is he gonna get crushed by this tree? Like what is happening?
And then it makes a lot more sense after watching Wages of Fear where he straight up runs over the fucking guy's leg. You're like, oh, like this is like you're expecting that he's gonna get run over. Also, I mean, assuming that you've watched Wages of Fear as a movie, you're like, oh, he's gonna get crushed. And then when he doesn't completely get crushed, you're like, all right, I guess this isn't a remake. I guess he was right.
Well, and then like that probably was intentionally done to kind of mess with people that knew that film and wanted to, and like he's got to be a little bratty about it, right? And I guess. Oh, sorry. Anyway,
I was just gonna say it's like Spike Lee's remake of Old Boy. You know, they do subvert some of the plot points just to make it different enough.
I can't believe you referenced that in this show. But okay,
I forgot that even existed.
I'm okay with forgetting that existed.
Yeah, it came up recently.
Did you bring it up then too? Probably.
Yeah. Believe it or not,
we got some golden.
Okay, well, what I was gonna say has nothing to do with any of that, but that's fine. We can. Spike Lee's Old Boy, sure. That's the important.
We got some Golden Globes news.
Oh, hey! Awesome. All right.
Yep. I'm trying to get up from the.
Boy, right there. Yeah.
Yes.
That rules.
That's of course for the podcast listeners. When the headline comes back up, I'll read it.
Yeah. So he's won.
Headline comes up.
Ke Huy Quan wins Best Supporting Actor at Golden Globes 2023. For so many years, I was afraid I had nothing more to offer. The Everything Everywhere
Yeah.
All at
And I
Once
guess
stars
he
his initial acceptance speech.
yeah, I guess he cried during his accept, which crying. It was pretty beautiful. Yeah, so I mean that's a
That's
good sign
fantastic.
for that's a good sign for the Oscars, I think, when
Yes.
when we're rooting for Everything Everywhere All at Once to win every Oscar everywhere all at once.
I think for supporting actor, it's going to be him and like the entire main cast of Banshees of Inisherin, who also would be deserving. But like, I think it's like there's no one else that's for supporting actor. It's going to be even close. But we're not doing that show yet. We're doing this show. That's going to be next month. Andy brought up something completely unrelated. What were we talking about?
It was Old Boy.
No, you were talking about the changes.
I don't remember what we were talking
the changes
about.
between the various films and how it was done.
Wages of Fear and Sorcerer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the author didn't like Wages of Fear. The author of the book that both these movies are inspired on didn't like it, even though it was a big, not in the U.S., but a big European hit. He didn't think it was a good adaptation. So when Friedkin, who flew to France, I think, I can't remember, to meet with him, he was like, "Yes, please do that. That's awesome."
Well, they had a falling out during the shooting of it based on changes.
They did.
So
they did, and he didn't like the changes that he made either. But he also met with Clouseau, who was like, "Okay,
yeah,
cool."
well, so the guy that wrote
like,
the book said you can kind of you can have the rights to this, but you also have to talk to Clouseau and get his. So it was like you have to talk to him and get his blessing. But like I definitely.
But of course, he's coming off making a huge hit. So like I think Clouseau was like, "What you want to?"
Yeah, and I think they made a profit sharing agreement too with Clouseau, if I remember correctly, which it bombed. So poor guy.
But still not a remake.
Yes,
or whatever.
But it's not a remake, exactly. All right, dude.
Yeah. So this is I want to play more clips from this. This is
But I think that's interesting because like so that basically means that two very well regarded films among cinephiles, right? And like the author isn't like either one. Who are you, Stephen King?
You would assume that what he wants is a straight up remake of his work.
Yeah, just what he wants,
line by line, like yeah. So anytime anyone changes anything, it seems like
which would probably be terrible because writing a book and writing a screenplay are very different things, and making a movie and
so this is him talking about the actual like the underlying thing in Fate, and I think this is kind of interesting because I don't know another time that we get like a dude just being like, so this is the underlying theme of the movie, in case you're like putting it into his own statement. People are usually like, well, I'll let the audience decide. Friedkin does not want the audience to decide.
He's not that type of bro. It's not.
And also, this guy, I like the beginning, like the shot in the beginning of this too. But this guy is just losing it throughout this entire thing.
NWR getting ready to blow. That's it. But he goes by NWR. Like he gives it whatever. We'll talk about this dude later. It's fine.
Fascinating. And again, being a younger version of you, I'm so interested in this relentlessness that you had at this point.
It's just what I believed.
Right.
That's how I felt about the world. And when I started making films, it wasn't all about superheroes. There are many great examples of the kind of characters we just talked about. The guys in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, they are bad.
Right.
They start good, and then since the film is about greed, they all become greedy.
Mm-hmm.
They all let greed take them over, with the possible exception of the Walter Houston character, who is the old prospector. Yeah. But the lead guy, Bogart, is a very bad individual who will kill his partners to take their share of the money.
Was that an inspiring movie for you?
Oh, yes. That's one of the greatest films I had ever seen.
So if
I could one day make a film as good as Treasure of Sierra Madre, I would quit.
Okay.
I would absolutely quit right there. And I haven't even made a film that goes near the power.
So was it almost like an internal template of it could work, this approach?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I thought anything I did at that point would work.
So you felt you were untouchable?
Yeah.
Literally untouchable.
As a film director.
Yeah, you could do anything.
Yeah.
Were the studios after you? Were they
no,
did they just open? Did let it go? Just whatever you needed?
They thought that the film was costing more than they would like to have spent.
What was the final budget?
I think the final budget was around $13 or $14 million.
When you were done?
Plus added costs by the studios. At that time, they would put a big surcharge on the film for financing it,
Right.
which they were entitled to, but which was not spent.
So you'd achieved everything everyone would ever dream of doing, basically. You were in that situation.
I don't think you ever reached that situation
But
because,
you were
as I
close
told
to
you, frankly, the cast that I would have preferred at the time
Right.
was McQueen, Mastroianni, and Lino Ventura.
Right.
And I always felt that with Paco Rabanne and Bruno Cremer, that it was a compromise. Although now, when it's 30 some years later, I don't know, 37 years or so later, I think they're wonderful.
But
I
back
think they're
then,
great.
you going into this movie, you felt you were compromised with your actors.
In the cast, yeah.
In the cast.
We wrote these parts for those other guys.
Right.
And so whoever did them was not the first choice for those roles.
And Sorcerer, the title was already from the get-go. How did you come up with that title?
Oh, I was listening to a Miles Davis album called Sorcerer. And I thought, hey, that sounds like a good title. I love the album. And I thought that was a good title. And I also realized at the time that what a sorcerer, in fact, was an evil wizard.
Right.
And in the case of the film, I thought the evil wizard was fate, that controlled the lives of all these people, no matter how heroic they were, or terrified, or adventuresome, or desperate, that their lives were out of their control, which is what I feel about all of us.
Right.
Every single person.
And did the studio
we
question?
have nothing to say about how we come into this world and nothing to say about how we're going to leave it. And that's the underlying theme of Sorcerer.
It's like a Chinese fortune cookie.
That's where you got it, huh?
Yeah, I can put up what he says to him what he says the fortune cookie thing. Hold on.
Well, yeah. So, all right, let's before we watch him, the reaction to that. I mean, I think that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if I buy it. Like, okay, that's why he decided to call it Sorcerer. I mean, why don't you call it Reaper?
I like when he's like,
sense.
he's like, what I thought to myself, I realized a sorcerer is an evil wizard. It's like, yeah. Everybody knows that. That's not
like it's some obscure phrase or something.
Have you really thought about the word sorcerer and like have you ever actually thought about what that? No, it's just. I mean, I
guess he's really high listening to Miles Davis, and he's like,
yeah.
Also high on his own supply from being so successful with The Exorcist as well.
Yeah.
And French Connection.
Yeah. Actually, I can't remember. Was French Connection before Exorcist?
Yeah, he came out of the gate with French Connection, and then The Exorcist was his next movie, and this was his next one after that.
Which is funny because knowing what happens with NWR next, he was pretty high on his own supply at the same time. But yeah, let's watch this together. Why don't we?
Every single person.
And did the studio
we
question?
have nothing to say about how we come into this world and nothing to say about how we're going to leave it. And that's the underlying theme of Sorcerer.
It's like a Chinese fortune cookie.
Huh? He's talking about Chinese fortune cookies. What the fuck is this guy talking about?
Mad relatable.
That's Andy in every situation. You're like, this is the theme, and he's like, it's like that Spike Lee movie. And you're like, what?
Like huh? Yeah, I need Friedkin as a sample on this show for those moments. Adam, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just saying I never noticed how Trumpy Friedkin sounds. Just the intonation of his voice. Like I could have myself.
Which is why it's funny. He just said, I don't know what megalomania means because. That's right? Trump definitely does.
Megalomania, what's that? Like,
I think also like they have like similar backgrounds or something. Aren't they like from the same area or some shit like that? I actually don't know, but I just think it's amazing that it's the first of many missteps that Refn does. So that I think is the turning point in the conversation. Like, yeah,
From there, it's all downhill for the rest.
And that's why I wanted to say earlier, there have been times that it was like pitched as like, oh, you guys are going to interview each other. And then like when I said like, but it was made very clear, like for anybody with the remotest feel for the room, that like, no, that's not what's happening here. What's happening is that I'm interviewing you, and maybe I was brought to it under false pretenses. I've literally been in this situation, but somebody doesn't seem to get it.
It's not that he doesn't get it.
Not like Noah
I think that
Baumbach.
he's
what,
so,
Adam?
Oh no, I was just saying it's not like Noah Baumbach like interviewing Brian De Palma, which is a legitimate interview. That doesn't
which is fine. And there's something I think there's an asterisk to it, but I enjoy NWR.
Yeah.
As he likes to call himself.
Great out of Copenhagen.
I think that I think that the critiques of him having incredible style and maybe totally lacking in substance sometimes, and being like, what, Diet David Lynch, I'm trying to think of all the trash talking that's happened. Some of that's true. But then also you watch something like Too Old to Die Young, and it's like, that's a pretty bold thing to do. Like, I'm not sure if it's like who it's for necessarily, but I watched all of it and I was like, all right, like that's his version of like Twin Peaks: The Return in its own weird way. But the guy's got a vision, but he doesn't seem to be able to read a room.
Well, see, my reading of it isn't that he's
because he's walking into it like they're peers, and Friedkin
Yeah.
clearly does not feel that way to begin with. And then he does this fortune cookie
I would wonder
shit.
if he's so narcissistic in this interview that like he's unwilling to cede the fact that it's not a peer-to-peer interview. Like he's
like maybe it wasn't pitched as that, but he just assumed it would be because he's like Mr. Hot
just
Shots,
did the
right?
research.
What I'm saying is I feel like he's unwilling to cede that level to Friedkin. So he just keeps trying to, like just like I don't know, just took his own stuff and like promote it. And he's like even as Friedkin totally takes over, he's like, I'm unwilling to have this happen. So he keeps trying to do it and getting knocked back down.
I was just gonna say Friedkin was born and raised in Chicago. So not the same part of well, what is it, Queens?
I'm glad we got that snap correction out of the way. That's good. I mean, I was literally just theorizing that, like, because they seem like similar-ish type of dudes in a certain way, although one of them's talented and it's not the
my grandma was born a county over from where Trump was born, and they have literally I realized one day my grandma was like saying something and was like complaining, and I realized they have the same voice, but like my grandma's voice is like a couple octaves higher.
Yeah,
than
it's kind of like an old people around that time period, kind of like the cadence almost as well.
But once I heard it, I couldn't unhear it, and now every time she talks, I picture Trump being like,
"What did he do? What did he do after this? Cruising? Yeah, I think he did Cruising next, which is
that was his next one.
What a change up! Didn't have nice things to say about Pacino.
Yeah, no.
Did the Brinks job?
That was really funny. Where he's like, I don't give a fuck what Pacino has to say.
Yeah. Well, he's a very entertaining guy, but yeah, not a guy you want to get the bad side of. And NWR is just not reading these social cues at all. Like, and it goes deeper into it. But this isn't an analysis of that interview. This is an analysis.
We're gonna do an episode on that interview.
We pretty much could. I mean, it's because there are times that, like, as someone, this show notwithstanding, Adam, I've done I not only play music, but I've done a show called Counter Neutrons for Controversial. It's been going for almost 9 years now. It's mostly a one-on-one interview show, like with musicians I enjoy and respect, right? So because of that, when I see someone make a misstep in like a discussion like that, I'm like, oh no. No, reel it back. And when they don't, it's just like, no, that's like you just you just drove past the like bridge out sign.
Yeah, the whole thing
and you are going to go cross the bridge.
It's just like this narcissistic conflagration. It's just like it explodes. It's just like, oh,
like you need to have some degree of empathy and also the flow of a conversation. Instead of like I and I get it. He's a he's not a dummy. He's a smart guy, so he's got a lot to say too. But it's like, yeah, but a guy like Friedkin is like going to get annoyed that you're interrupting him, and then like is going to get like again he pulls that thing like fortune cookie. What? What are you fucking talking about?
NWR seems like a polite narcissist, like narcissist. He just doesn't have enough self-awareness, and he's oblivious of his how much he loves smelling his own farts. Whereas like Friedkin, I mean, he has decades worth of narcissism behind him. And
Yeah. And well, not just
Yeah,
so there's two different things here. There's narcissism, and then there's the grievances that come with narcissism when you feel like you haven't been respected enough or treated well enough. You're like, so I feel like Friedkin is both, and that's the Trump thing too, right? Like thinks he's a genius, thinks he's an unrecognized genius. So those two grievances, or the grievances and the narcissism together, make like this explosively like rude kind of like, you know, like I'm gonna actually tell them what I think of myself, like as opposed to like somebody like you know, that kind of wins an Oscar for Drive or whatever and kind of just gets away with it and is like able to politely be like, oh, I'm smart, blah blah. People are like, yeah, you know, he's all right, but like
has Friedkin seen half of his back catalog? Has he like seen Jade? Has he seen The Guardian? Like he made some like real garbage, you know, over the last like, you know, 40 years. But like post To Live and Die in LA is just,
it's pretty harsh, man.
Yeah.
Like there hasn't been a lot of fantastic films in his recent history, to be sure.
And I'm sure
what was that? The Devil and Father, someone or other, that was out a few years ago. I didn't even see that.
Well, it was
like a documentary, I think, if I remember right.
I feel like
part about it like an exorcism or something. I can't. Whatever, doesn't matter. You know, anyway, more about Spike Lee's remake of Old Boy.
I wanted to bring up Friedkin's Bug.
Oh, Bug?
Yeah.
I never saw Bug. That's one that
it's up your alley. You'd like it.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
I'm gonna while we're talking, I'm gonna play. This is just it's muted or whatever, but I'm gonna play. This is just stuff that Friedkin took on a Super 8 camera behind the scenes.
Oh, these are cool, awesome.
Yeah,
I love these things.
So we can keep talking because it's like a.
But yeah. I'm saying, so again, it's really easy to get into, like, as far as this NWR versus Friedkin interview, like that's deeply compelling and obviously hard to miss, especially that it actually is a substantive conversation about this somewhat underrated movie, like in a different world.
I think more than somewhat underrated. It's interesting that I think it's as uneven as it is, but it definitely is an underrated. Like, it got buried. You know what I mean?
So the next sentence I was going to say is, in a world where it didn't open against Star Wars and maybe had a different title, I think it actually would have been a very successful movie. And
I think if they had disconnected it, also from Wages of Fear somehow. You know what I mean? Like, I think that really the fact that it is seen as a remake of Wages of Fear is a remake of Wages of Fear, whatever else he wants to say. And that movie just has so much like going.
Film nerds care about that. People that are just like going to the movies and don't know what Wages of Fear is.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Wages of Valor.
But what does Friedkin care about more than like I think critical response? I think more than and Indonesian response. If the Indonesian people you know, vibe with it, he's happy. But
like Brian would have been a good title.
Like in '77, was Wages of Fear? Did it have that much clout to it?
It was look, Kozak also did Diabolic. Kozak was like the European Hitchcock to a certain degree. Like, I mean, he's super well regarded over there.
It's funny that Hitchcock isn't the European Hitchcock.
Yeah, but have you seen Diabolic? Have you seen? I mean, they were like active competitors, like with each other anyway, if not like the international market. But like, it's interesting that this is an annoyingly scattershot conversation to me, but going back to like what we were talking about earlier, like he knew Wages of Fear, liked it, and kind of wanted to bring it to a wider audience. So he's thinking about using his fame, Friedkin I'm talking about, to like bring a story and movie that he liked that he thought he could do a different way and kind of bring to a wider audience. Because he was assuming, like a lot of people assume, that have success, the success is going to stay with you as long as you stay true to your artistic vision.
Yeah.
And there's one thing he couldn't control, which is opening against Star Wars, which no movie would have been able to survive that, right? But certainly not be a worldwide hit, and not like talk about the dead opposite of Star Wars. Like, this is not a good time at the movies. This is a miserable time at the movies. It's amazing, but it's a miserable time at the movies.
And it would be compounded by Star Wars is sold out, and then you go see this movie instead.
Yeah, like, oh, let's just go see Sorcerer. I'll see some wizards, sure. And you're like, there's no wizards in this.
Kind of reminds
which is the other thing that was within his control. Is literally like, why did you call it Sorcerer? Like, it's dumb.
I was getting really high listening to Miles Davis at the time.
Yeah, well, we figured that out. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just wild to me that like nobody were like, I don't know.
This is like when The Thing opened against E.T.
Right.
It's the same weekend in 1982.
I forgot about that. It was not a hit at the time. You're right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it wasn't just that, there are two like extraterrestrial movies, but one is so like life affirming and family friendly and pro establishment and makes you feel good and it's very saccharine, and then the other is completely bleak and nihilistic, and this is even more bleak and nihilistic than The Thing. And
E.T. is pro establishment.
Maybe not pro stat. I mean, I'm just thinking in terms of like Spielberg in general.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't need to get it.
E.T. obey authority.
I get where you're going with it. They're very different kind of movies, appealing to very different kind of audiences. And...
they're like E.T. We're gonna get you home. There's a few forms you're gonna have to fill out.
Like the Thing was like part of the old guard, right. and like Sorcerer is probably it's at the very tail end of the old guard. Still have like this.
What it is, I mean, it's the same thing that happened with this movie versus the blockbuster kind of versus the I think the blockbuster versus auteur, like creative artistic
prestige film that we're like 70s were lousy with, and we all love, right? Yeah.
As that is kind of dying out, and as Star Wars, people got really pissed off that Star Wars ended up winning like Oscars over and like acclaim over different like artistic movies that came out that same year. Like there was a whole critical response
and people like lose their minds that Spider-Man No Way From Home got
nobody
like,
talks about Star Wars anymore though, so it's like which movies have survived the
because people make their entire identity hating on Marvel movies, which is incredibly tiresome. But like, and I get it when you like there's movies that don't get the critical acclaim that they should and don't have the audience they deserve, like Come On, for instance, which got totally snubbed at the Oscars, for instance. Yeah, I get it, I totally get it, but also there both has to be a place for populism and a place for artistry as well. Like you can't just be like I like Tar, and I'm sure we'll get into it because we're probably going to cover it next month. But it is absolutely it's almost tailor-made to win an Academy Award. Like it's one of those kinds of movies, right? Sorcerer is not tailor-made for that.
I mean, you remember the year of
artistic
Green Book, the year of Green Book that was like they're like, oh, let's tackle racism in a movie. Like that's for the
we thought Crash solved it, but it turns out we need one more in the bank, guys.
So I want to talk about Tangerine Dream and the score.
Yes.
But this is a clip of them talking about how he met Tangerine Dream within this conversation, and then
it's either this or Thief that is like the first Tangerine Dream score. I can't.
I think it's this one.
Is it this one? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thief is great too. That's also a great soundtrack.
Now, how long does it take to edit this movie?
A matter of some months.
And Tangerine Dream's score, which by the way is unique.
That was done before the film was even shot.
Interesting story. So they did the score based on your script, correct?
And what I had told them when I met them in the Black Forest of Germany at an abandoned church at a concert they were giving.
You were promoting Exorcist in Germany.
I was on tour in Germany, and someone from the Warner Brothers studios it was either Munich or Frankfurt, told me about this incredible group who were playing a concert at an abandoned church in the Black Forest. And I went out there, heard this group, the Tangerine Dream. I met Edgar Frazee, who was the leader, and the
Rest in peace.
Yeah, he died not long ago from the time we're talking. It's less than a month ago. And I met him. He had not done a score for a film, but this music was incredible. It was the music of the spheres. And it weren't songs.
It's a great album, yeah.
And I said, look, I want you guys to, I didn't know what my next film was going to be. But I said, I want you to score my next film. I asked them if they would do a score without seeing the movie. Just what I told them, by the time I came up with this idea to do Sorcerer, I met with Edgar Frazee again, told him the story, and when we had a script, I sent him the script. And they just went into a studio in Germany and recorded a whole bunch of their impressions of what I had told them and what.
So you were like you were directing the score in a very unique way.
But I didn't direct it. I just.
Well, no, what you were defining it for them.
Yeah,
you were.
It was their sound that I wanted them to adapt to the story I had given.
It's a bit like Dario Argento and the Goblins when he was making with them. He was directing them like you were.
Well, I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
But I love Dario Argento. And
everyone does.
Well, not everyone, but a lot of people do. But one day we were in the jungles at Tuxtepec, and this package arrived from Veracruz, Mexico. It was sent from Germany to Veracruz, Mexico, and it was driven 100 miles to where my location was. And I had this package of their tapes, which I couldn't play because we had nothing to play, gigantic reel-to-reel tapes. So I didn't hear it right away, but I sent it back to Mexico City to get transferred into little cassettes. And I first heard the score on a little cassette recorders.
In the
and I thought it
jungle.
was fantastic.
So did it inspire you? Did that help you?
Definitely.
With the visions?
Yeah. It
Okay.
was tough and mean and rhythmic
Right.
and powerful. What I had expected. No sentimentality.
Right.
I hate sentimentality,
I've noticed.
especially phony sentiment, which so many of the films I see are just filled with phony sentiment.
So now you've cut the film. You put, is the music on when you're going to show it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I cut the film to the music a lot
Right.
of times.
So then you go to, is it Universal first or
Yeah.
Paramount or
Because
how?
I was editing at Universal.
Okay, then you show it to Universal.
Well, here's what happened.
Okay.
One day, Lou Wasserman and Sid Sheinberg said, look, when you do get a cut that you like, Sid Sheinberg was head of the motion picture department at Universal, and Wasserman was the overall boss. And they said, one day when you have a cut that you like, can we look at it? And in those days, they could only look at it on what was called a Chem editing machine, a Keller editing machine, German made. And it wasn't the kind of digital editing facilities we have now. It was, you put up a reel of film and a reel of sound with a sync mark on both. You'd sync them up and run double system on a screen about this big.
Lot to unpack there, not the least of which is NWR once again putting his foot in his mouth, assuming everyone loves Dario Argento. I, for one, do not love Dario Argento, so I would have interrupted that as well.
Well, but he said he does, but he's like, not everyone does. And then you hitting up the chat and be like, I don't. It's like, oh, he's talking about Conan. Like,
I don't.
I have a friend.
I respect it. I just don't enjoy watching the movies.
He's like, I have a friend named Conan Neutron who does not like Dario Argento. So not everybody does.
But I wouldn't feel compelled to chime in unless someone made some grand sweeping statement like, well, everyone loves Dario Argento. It's like,
I feel like Suspiria is one of the most overrated films of all time.
I would agree with that.
But I do like Dario Argento. I just don't like that movie.
Respect. I mean, like, I and all love for people to get something out of it. I just don't. I've tried twice and I was like, nope, still don't like it. I don't like Giallo either as a genre. I think it's boring and stupid. Follow me for more opinions. Goblin's fucking awesome. Goblin rules.
They should have gotten you into this conversation with fucking.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what we need. Is one more loudmouth. Right?
Yeah, you can just elbow NWR in the ribs. Like,
I probably would have bodied him.
Okay, so what happens next? You go to the editing room, and then Conan's like, "Yeah, what the editing room? Let's talk about Tangerine Dream, good score." And then he's like, "I'm trying to ask," and you're like, "No, shut up, NWR. Let's."
I'm 100. I don't want to be an asshole here. I'm 100 times better of an interviewer than NWR is. Thank you very much.
I would also yeah, you are, but I would also insert Andy into that conversation so he can get real off
Did you guys know that Spike Lee remade Old Boy?
What the fuck is this guy talking about?
Old Boy. It's old, but it's a boy.
Wait, this is another. There's no place to like insert this. This is another hilarious moment that I found. This isn't when he snaps yet, but
But I think that's it. But that tells you the difference between those dudes, right? Like NWR is making he's making a sweeping statement about this, and Friedkin's very quick to articulate. Not everyone thinks that. Like, and that shows where that's at, which is he should be reading that social cue. Again, I'm turning this to a moratorium on this interview, but like considering like that they started off in agreement. The agreement that Tangerine Dream is awesome. Old coin. Very good, Stevie. Like they start off in agreement, like, hey, that got this Tangerine Dream score. It's great. Did it inspire you with? Oh yes, absolutely did. Like they're getting into good stuff, right? And then he just blows it by just like again, just don't say nothing. You don't have to say anything in that.
Well, and then that's the phony sentimentality. I feel like that he's
he literally just said he doesn't like sentimentality, and you just like.
I feel like he was almost like kind of sub tweeting, I guess, in real life, but like, you know, like kind of hinting that like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that comes out with phony sentimentality these days. I don't like most of it. And I feel like he's kind of at that point kind of underlying that too, NWR. He's like, I don't, that's different than my stuff. I don't do that with maybe I'm reading too much into it because you know, I don't know.
Well, but like think about the movie they're discussing. Sorcerer is he's right. It's completely absent of all sentimentality. It's this brutal movie where terrible things are happening all the time, and it's like seemingly random, and like there's no
breathing room. There's no oxygen because it's relentless because like as soon as one truck gets across the bridge, you're just like, okay. And also, oh
my god, there's another truck. I forgot.
Yeah. And it's already on the bridge when it cuts to that scene. It's not.
Yeah. You don't even get like the build up for it. It's like, all right, we're just going right back to the fireworks factory. So okay.
Well, and you know, when the second truck explodes, which I mean, spoiler alert, I guess if you've made it this far, you don't know that one of the trucks.
For a movie like as old as I am, yeah.
It's absent of like a climax to it. They're just kind of sitting in the truck, and then all of a sudden you hear and the wheel gives out, and then the truck goes down the foot. Like there's no moment where you're like expecting like this is about to happen. They're just like, oh, I've been talking about Trent. Yeah.
That's how death works, you know.
It's actually better than that because it is maybe one of the only sentimental moments is like he's talking about how his watch is set to Paris time. Oh yeah, the time there is whatever, and then the tire blows they go over and explode. It's like one of the only sentimental parts about it. Like this is not a guy that's in there, oh my wife this, my wife that, this like at all. And like the one time he talks about it, they literally die.
Well, no more talking about your wife. That was his first mistake.
Lesson leared. Okay.
Don't talk about that, broad. You know.
I mean, to be fair, every time I talk about time in Paris, I explode. So.
No, but like he I just find it just awesome that like it's the one moment where you feel like you have breathing room. Like he lures you into feeling like, oh,
you're like, oh, you're gonna get a nice moment. These guys are gonna get to like, oh, cool. Oh yeah, so you know, you went to I went to Paris once, you know, I was only there for a couple of days. Oh, okay, cool. And they're like actually, and you kind of get lulled into like, oh, it's some camaraderie.
Yeah,
this
and like
is comfortable.
Finally they're bonding after it being like extremely awkward the entire time. With the three of them and like with Nilo and like you feel like they're finally warming up to each other. They've been through a lot, and then it's like you're and it's like
what
which you know, Wages of Fear kind of does a similar but you don't even like it's not.
But you get like all
like,
through
he's
it.
literally just shaving. Homeboy is just
but you get all through it them interacting and you get it's done as a slower boil that way. Like they originally find common cause by being in this like horrific situation together and like having to work their way through it and work through their disdain of like the one guy. And like, it's a slower boil, but it hits differently. Cause again, Friedkin puts the emphasis on the background of these guys, not their lived in relationship. So you get some of the lived in relationship, but really what you mostly get is just people being put in danger in horrible situations that they have no way out of for reasons that are just adventure and danger, pretty much.
I wonder how that scene of the Paris scene plays in Indonesia. Like, well, no, because that's the one moment where you feel like there's like actually dialogue going on where you're like, oh, well, you have to actually have to hear the scene to like understand they're finally
where
bonding.
do they pause it? Like you know, is it before or after the tire blows?
And they're like, oh fuck, I missed it. We got to go back. Like, reverse the reel. Like.
I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean. But I think that's a key distinction, and I think that like in his because his stated goal, or at least how he's wrapping it up now in the more or less modern times, is that you know he wanted to be like that. It's this brutal world, right? I mean, like look at the ending. You know, you think like, oh well, at least he's like haunted till the end of his days, but like one of the guys got through with it, and like. He has some degree of hope available to him if he himself is fundamentally hopeless. And then you see the dudes coming in to kill him.
He also tries to get you to feel some type of emotion or whatever for a Nazi. Like the guy that
because you're like, oh, that dude's a literal Nazi. Yeah. By the way, your buddy, literal Nazi. Cool.
Yeah, well, and that's why he likes the guy that's Palestinian so much. He's like, "Yo, you fucking killed people in Israel." Like, he's like,
there's not
"Yo."
a single sympathetic character in the movie except maybe the Palestinian guy, although he does kill a bunch of people. But like, I mean,
You know, there is really. I felt.
Yeah.
I felt a little bit of sympathy for you know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a liberation struggle. You know what I mean? Like it's not
exactly. But
I was the Nazi.
It feels like that's not the point. It feels like he almost like purposefully chose a bunch of characters who you wouldn't necessarily have any modicum of sympathy for, because he's kind of examining, you know, like all with the exception of Nilo, who I feel like he's like sort of the odd person out. You know, you have.
Well, he literally murdered someone to get in there. He wasn't even originally in the
literally a killer
of the movie.
But you have three characters who have escaped certain death, but they haven't, and they have no control over that at all.
Which is something that I think that fucking Wages of Fear does perfectly, and it's interesting. I feel like there's almost like a bar established by the final scene of Wages of Fear, where you know you've watched the entire 2.5 hour long fucking movie. Like, and you're finally like, oh, well, this one guy made it, and he's so happy that he made it, and he's, you know, driving his truck around and around and around, and then the truck just tanks off the side of a cliff with the Blue Danube playing in the background, and you knew that was kind of coming, but he's like almost there, and just the truck just explodes. He's fucking out of it. Like,
which is a different heartbreaking ending than Sorcerer, but yeah, like no less of a bummer for sure. And it's again part of the reason why that works is that I think Wages of Fear sets it up as like there are these long waits. There's just long waits of like you're like, wow, anything could happen. If they hit a weird bump, this could blow. You get a lot more of that. Yeah. Whereas with Sorcerer, it's like, look at this crazy thing we have to overcome, and that's amazing, and that's thrilling in a different way. But like, it's more about the cumulative death of 1,000 cuts than it is about like any like one specific thing.
Yeah. So this is a weird moment that I liked, and I don't know where else to go.
So you walk down the yellow brick road. You
It wasn't a yellow brick road.
Well, you must have felt like Dorothy a little bit.
I can assure you, I've never felt like Dorothy.
But the point is that you must.
Today, it's not unusual for men to feel like Dorothy.
No, I have a
we
Dorothy
live in a
in
different
me.
world.
I have a Dorothy in me.
You may have a Dorothy outside of you.
Well, Dorothy came out in Cruising. But anyway, the point is this.
Holy crap! Okay. Yeah, he's just seeing all the bridge out signs and just flew right in. Yep. Let's keep going.
I like the. He's like, I have never felt. It was not a yellow brick road. I was on pavement, sir.
Yeah.
And I was walking out of the editing studio. And this is something, you know, I walked out of the editing studio. It was a road. It was not yellow brick. And I'm done with this. I'm walking.
This is like the meme with the bird trying to do the jokes.
Ooh, get better material.
Exactly. It's kind of hard to see, but yeah, but like look at like this entire film, right? It's a harsh toke, man. It's not like a good time at all, and it's not meant to be. And like that's part of it, and that's like ingrained in like the DNA of this film. Like it's not a jokey good time.
The same thing happened to Blowout. I mean, I feel like, you know, from this period forward, any like real bad time movie just got tanked, you know.
Yeah, and Blowout's amazing. Blowout's it's honestly, it's probably one of Travolta's best roles. Pulp Fiction, frankly. But that's a bummer as well. And I've actually not seen the original, which I'll hang my cinephile card up at the door, so everyone can know.
So do you want to do like so? This is the final snapping of.
Yeah, let's in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's do it.
This is the second truck blowing out of of interview moments.
You've experienced the last film you made was not successful, box office, and with some critics.
So successful enough because it was cheap, so it made money. Yours didn't. That's the big difference.
No, there's another difference. There's what you believe you have achieved with what you have done and what you haven't achieved.
Oh, I'm like you. I have no regrets about Only God Forgives. I think it's a masterpiece, and it is. I just didn't make it very expensive.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Oh God!
We need to get a medic in here. Is there a doctor around?
I just didn't make it.
If you think that's a masterpiece, what is Citizen Kane?
It's great, but it was an inexpensive movie, so financially.
Who gives a shit?
No, it does, because that's how you survive. Because if Sorcerer had made a lot of money, your life would have been changed. But it didn't.
No.
As you say.
No, not much. I mean, and frankly,
you called yourself the wound that it gave you. It hurted you.
What?
The failure of Sorcerer back then.
I would look. They're far worse. I've recently lost a number of friends. That's what really hurts. I mean, who have died.
But back then, you were so relentless. You would travel to the moon, which that's what I admire. But I guess the love that you feel, the joy, the flow of it being rediscovered, that it was meant to do, because all artists have vanity. And the idea that people are re-embracing what we do, and it's interesting that your films is reaching a whole new younger audience. And I still say, if you looked at French Connection, The Exorcist, this movie, Cruising, and so forth, it's like the movies were made today, like Killer Joe. It's like they never aged. That's a very unique quality to have.
Oh wow!
I like that he's I like that he goes, what is Citizen Kane? He goes, it's great. And then you see freaking just look at the camera like, this fucking guy. And as Mustard, his Danish accent comes out in force.
This is the conversation, this part of it, by the way. This is like, no, that dynamite is like leaking. Don't be careful. Handle with care.
Yeah, no, it really is like it's the two trucks thing, but it's like you're watching this thing, and it's like you're like, oh no, it's about to.
It's shaking. What are you gonna say, Adam? Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's also like I can't imagine calling your own work like a master. Like you don't have the objectivity at all. You're standing right in the middle of it. That's not for you to decide.
The thing is that earlier in that interview, Friedkin says that this is like the one thing he made that he's like truly happy with. It's his favorite project that he's made. He thinks he did a good job, even if other people criticized it at the time. It's obviously getting looked at now, and if people are like, no, this is actually a pretty good movie with distance. But like, so he's like, no, this is the one project that I don't really have regrets over. Like certain things, but like, I don't really have regrets over it the way that critics or something would say I do. And then he's like, and my work is a masterpiece too. And
yeah, and not only that, he's not talking about Drive, he's talking about Only God Forgives, which is like, yeah.
What's
amazing?
Kane? Yeah, no, that's great, but
it's no
what God Forgives is the Citizen Kane of Ryan Gosling movies.
There's a great there's a great Letterbox one-liner about Only God Forgives, and it's just, I think God should rethink his position. I was like, respect. But anyway, this isn't about NWR as much as it's hard not to be. I get it. Like this is again in a world where there is not a Wages of Fear. Well, first of all, there wouldn't be a Sorcerer, but like I feel like it's a really great film. Like if this came out like a year earlier, great. This would have been a hit. Like
they would have
there's nothing like
Jaws.
Yeah, I mean, like it's another. Well, you know what I mean. I'm saying what I'm saying is that like, and especially if it's just been called literally anything else, like almost anything else other than like magician. Like, I mean, just something that doesn't apply. There's supernatural shit going on. It's not that hard. Trucks in the jungle. Give it the Planet of the Apes treatment.
I mean, it's just it's such a freaking dark horse. I actually had never heard of it until like 10 years ago. And then, I discovered the score and fell in love with it. And then I couldn't find it anywhere. And it's been such a,
I heard the score first too. And maybe that's because we're music guys, right? But like, I was like, oh, another Tangerine Dream. What's this movie? I know. And then I saw the DVD cover or something. I'm like, oh, it must be some crazy supernatural jungle shit. That's why.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if you felt like he was just piggyback. Like, I mean, there had to have been like a subconscious part of his reasoning where he was like, well, The Exorcist was a supernatural film, and maybe I can piggyback.
Of course, everyone's gonna think it's a supernatural film.
Yeah.
What the fuck planet do you think you're living on, dude? Like, I mean, because again, can't help opening against Star Wars. Can't help that. That just happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But, like, you could have called this literally anything else.
I also heard that. So basically,
call it Life is Cheap. Like whatever. Like, oh, whatever. It doesn't matter.
As he went like so drastically over budget, a second studio stepped in. So basically, it became like the product of two studios, and neither of them promoted it at all. There was no marketing plan whatsoever. So like,
Feel bad movie of the year,
because they weren't communicating with one another. So like studio, I don't remember which studio was which, but like Studio A thought Studio B was pushing it. Studio B thought Studio A was pushing it. So that was part of the problem too. But like, I mean, if you go back and read reviews from 1977, like they just fucking tear it to pieces. It's vicious.
Well, and it's because he plays it like an art house film, right? Like doing like the exposition of how these dudes get to where they are, where you're like, what is all this leading up to? This feels like this has been going on for forever.
Yeah.
And then like then when they finally get there, you're like, oh, okay. So like now we know that like all these are desperate dudes that are going to be there. Didn't need to show all of that, but he does it art house style because he wants to. He wants to show it.
They thirsty, they some desperate dudes out here just trying to get some money. They're gonna get some hoes,
But like,
my remake of Sorcerer, Tyler Perry's Sorcerer,
and it's just the scene of Roy Scheider looking at the ass of the Coca-Cola in the painting.
Medea's big truck trip,
licking his lips.
I feel like we need to bring the after parties back so we can get some of this out during the after party. But but do you see what I'm saying with that? That like it's like he chooses to show it. He chooses to show because that's the kind of film he wants to make. Do you see the like little things? Like
I just assumed he wanted like free travel. He wanted to
like in the heist one, right? Where they rob like the church bingo game. The bride has a black eye. Like little moments like that where it's like, oh Jesus, like this is a rough world that we're in here. Like the fact that like you get to see the French guy's business partner like shoots himself.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, first time I saw this, like I missed that part. So I was like, is the mob after him? Like what's happening? And I was like, oh no, he shot himself. I'm like, oh okay. Like I
just this is PG, by the way.
What's that?
I just love that this is PG, by the way.
Insane, right?
Yeah. And he tells his wife, I got to go on a business trip real quick, and just flees to South America.
No, he doesn't even tell his
go out
wife.
for a pack of cigarettes.
He tells the maitre d.
He's
like, tell my wife I left on business or something, and he's like, here, I'll pay for the check.
And it literally
he's peeking out from behind the plant, like just like
exactly.
And then she never saw him again. But no, they give you so much backstory. They give you a ridiculous amount of backstory for Roy Scheider's character.
They do, and I feel like for the assassin guy, you'd be like, oh, this dude kills people, and like that's all you get. And well, I feel like it's overweighted to Roy.
Each vignette is like twice as long as the last.
Yeah.
The Roy Scheider one, though, like he's in that accident, you kind of feel for him in the accident. He gets away, and then he has another guy that he goes to that he's like, oh, I gotta get out of here.
And they get away because they're having an argument.
For me one time. You did a favor for me one time, so I owe you one. This is my favor to you. And it's like, you don't get any information about what that favor was or the history of that, but you do now see that he has at least one friend. And then during that insane visualization sequence at the end, it comes back and his friend is like talking, like pointing at him, and he's like, oh, I got a place for you to go or something. And it's like, you're going to bring that back and all the things that happened, like not the car crash that probably cost
like the stuff you barely remember from the beginning. Because like the big thing with that is, of course, in the heist of the church bingo game, right? That a priest gets killed. And so they're arguing about it, like, and they're arguing, obviously like it's an upsetting thing, and ended up like wrecking. And then like there's the great like, blood and money sort of like writhing around. I mean, it's great cinema. It's like arguable if you need it to like know that like this is a desperate dude. Like I feel like you get like a sentence and a half of exposition and you're after the races. But
half of the fucking gangsters in New Jersey by the end of that fucking sequence.
And you don't need to know any of it. But
the guy's like, oh, that priest was my brother, and this is my church, and he would come in here and kill my brother. I'm going to kill him now. And they're like,
but he rolls through it.
And then but then he's like, you killed the last few guys. Are you sure you want to do this? He's like, yeah. And then you see him on the dock talking.
So it's like an episode of Sopranos.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I felt about it. Yeah,
and it's paced like a Hal Hartley movie. Frankly, I mean, and I say, peace and love. But it's like okay, like I get you want to show where the guy came from, but like, man, you could drop 10 minutes of this at this point, like, and it'd be fine. Like, it wouldn't hurt anything, and you would still get it across. But he chooses not to do it. Like, he's basically using his notoriety to make the kind of film he wants. And what he wants to make is a film that does show that. And again, not even to give you, most movies would do it to give you a reason to care about the characters.
Yeah, not this one.
And that's not even what he's doing. He's just trying to show you more like darkness and horrific things that like happen. So if anything, is to feel less empathy towards them. You're like, hey, by the way, these guys suck. These guys all suck. They all like suck for different reasons. Even again, Palestinian guy's probably the most relatable. He literally just killed a bunch of people. And I know, Forrest, you think it's okay because they're Jews, but
Zionists. We say Zionists.
but that's what's so crazy to me is like he used the time to show all these backgrounds to give you less empathy for the main characters.
No, but I think it's
because that's the kind of movie you wanted to be.
The Israel-Palestine conflict that's like, at this point, I feel like is like a both sides thing, right? Like violence, like escalating violence. It's kind of interesting to use that kind of neutralistic frame where you're like, look, this is the violence going on between two different groups, and it's like, there's no morality to it. And then, but the guy escapes. Like, that's all you really have to know.
But the thing is, like, okay,
he killed some Jews.
Was it a worthy killing or not? Well, like, talk about like the rich French banker's wife who's like writing this movie. She talks about like, this soldier, this philosopher soldier, and he's like, well, does he pull the trigger? Yeah. Like, because that's what matters in the end, right? And that actually is an importance because it's like, oh yeah, like that doesn't matter if he was like a philosopher or whatever. He's still fucking killing innocent people.
But yeah, no, but I feel like
what a flex! What a flex to do that, right? What a flex to be like, hey, these guys blow. Here's all the reasons why they're horrible people, but like also like
they're all just criminals. Like,
these are criminals.
Yeah,
I think it's important to have the vignettes to have the backstory, but not. It's the least.
Yeah, you do get like a season of The Sopranos with the one guy's backstory. It's like, I don't know who are these people.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my god, this is the
blood maybe feud. 15 minutes for the entire thing.
This is the blood feud that we've been engaged in for 10 years. And these are my 17 soldiers. We're gonna go after him, and it's like, oh, so that's what this movie's about. Nope, has nothing.
First time I watched this was in a hotel in Pasadena after recording a record, and like I was like, I thought this was a remake of Wages of Fear. Is this like a gangster movie? Like what? Like I don't like. And I was like checking my sources. Like, oh no, I guess it's got a long extended intro. And then I was like, oh okay, I get it now. But
meanwhile, Wages of Fear doesn't give you really any backstory. Pretty much,
no.
They're just like, these are bums from Europe. They live in Mexico now, or
These guys all did shitty things, and now they're in this shitty place.
There you go, and they're doing this shitty job. Guys from Europe. You don't know what part of Europe. I mean, the guy's Mario, the other guy's Luigi. You assume Italy. Like you know that by you know that they're gonna drive trucks. They're gonna drive, but it's like they're bums now. They're broke, and they're gonna take this job. They can't unionize, which I really liked that they explicitly said in Wages of Fear, like, hey, we can't use unionized workers because they're not gonna do this. They have laws. Let's just get these European bums that happen to be in this town for whatever reason after World War II to do this.
Yeah, let's.
Although I do like the one line in Sorcerer where the guy's like, "Are you a Teamster?" It's like,
Greyhound driver.
Yeah. He there's also he had a falling out, I guess, with the Teamsters and the trucking crew. He had to replace the entire trucking crew, who are the people like the backbone of this movie. Like, the movie's about guys driving trucks, and he ends up firing all the fucking truckers and replacing them with new truckers. Totally different driving styles, for all you know. Some truckers are like flexing like this. Other truckers are, they're like some are listening to the Blue Danube,
and some listen to Tangerine Dream.
Yeah.
I feel like almost the opposite ending of Wages of Fear in Breaking Bad, when you see Jesse drive away at the last minute, like he escapes from everything. I feel like that's that scene if he had lived. Like he's just so happy and like crying and everything. But like they can't kill off Jesse in a fucking car crash, so that makes a lot of sense. They didn't do that.
If he just crashed,
I made it alive, yeah, bitch. And he's driving, and then you see him hit a truck.
Front on head gainer. What were we gonna say, Adam? I think you had something you wanted to chime in on that.
Oh no, just the Friedkin like alienated everyone on this production, and I think that contributed to like his output, like the quality of his output, kind of like, you know.
Well, nobody wants
to in steps with each movie. I mean, he just
nobody wants to work with Friedkin.
Well, he became radioactive, you know,
and good reason, yeah.
And I mean, like that interview, yeah, it's just like two dicks just kind of, you know, and,
two dicks just swanging.
Yeah.
Well, and again,
as Renee Ruin would say.
Exactly. It's amazing that the scenes that everybody thinks of, which is the crazy truck and the bridge scene, again, they did that on location and built a whole like appliance to like shake it and do the things that they needed to do. And then by the time they did it, like the river had totally run dry, so they had to move it to another river. And again, and that river's right up too. And then they had to basically like fake it, which it looks fine, you know, like
it looks
they
really
did like sump pumps. They used sump pumps to push river water into like the river.
Well, the thing is, this movie
just
is so,
do it on a set, but that's not what he wanted to do, you know. Okay.
This movie is so hallucinatory. I think, you know, and it starts out with the scene, which
you can't argue with the results, though. That's
what presumably is hallucinatory because of their challenges in building it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like. But it sets you up for when you're finally watching the, you know, when he actually does start hallucinating in the fucking
like so when the truck finally like blows a tire after he's like almost there, and it's in that weird like that section almost looks like the moon or something, like it's all kind of crazy looking to begin with, and it's
the moon, New Mexico, who knows the difference.
it looks like a Refn movie. It's like you know, almost got like bisexual lighting going on, and then
bisexual lighting. I invented that. Sorcerer is the movie that invented by nobody did that but me. It's a perfect movie. And the Refkin's like, yeah, well, my lighting was pretty. No, your lighting is not bisexual lighting. If that's your lighting, what's lighting Citizen?
One of my movies is literally called Neon Demon. No.
He's like, yeah, the lighting's pretty good to Citizen Kane. This fucking guy.
but yeah, but before we got on that riff, like then he literally picks up the box and starts carrying it like the last couple miles, right? Which is crazy. Right? And then, but like, you know, which way to go? Well, of course he knows where to go because he sees a gigantic flame. Symbolic much, right? Like he's like literally walking into the flame with the explosives. And then like, you know, whatever, like it gets there, which is again, remember all of this is because like it's costing them money to like not be able to operate. And you can't fly it in because reasons, which is dispatched in like one line. It's not like 20 minutes, like most of the rest of the preamble.
Yeah, that's awesome. You learned so much in that one scene with the helicopter, and he's like, "No, the helicopter will shake." And it's like, "Well, can you, make it a little bit higher?" And he's like, "No, we can make it higher, but then this part's gonna shake, and then we can't fly it." And it's like, you learn a lot about helicopters and fucking nitroglycerin.
Yeah, and it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like under a minute, and then you're like, "Oh, okay, cool, that makes sense." But that takes care of like what would have been the comment section back then of like
versus like the entire first half hour of the film.
That's ponderous. It's like that scene in Twin Peaks: The Return where like the dude's sweeping up for 7 minutes, where you're like, oh my god, that's what I feel like I'm watching right now.
Well, no one wants to copter anymore. I think that's what we're learning here. I think it's interesting that you get the whole background on the nitroglycerin, and it's like, no, they didn't turn it because of course they didn't. This is an exploitative, not Gulf and Western, anything but Gulf. I guess Exxon Mobil or something. And
it wouldn't profit them to do so, right? That's the thing.
And also they're just not paying attention to this stuff. They're just trying to get the results and then pull it out of the ground and then get it to the United States or whatever. Like they're not thinking about the stuff. And the guy's like, you can't do this is now fucking explosive as fuck. Like you can't. You can't just like leave it out and like it's literally it's crazy when he throws it and it fucking explodes.
Yeah,
and it's like it's literally leaking out its ingredients.
Yeah, the nitroglycerin's leaking out. Well, but you get an idea for like how these dudes roll literally when they're trying out the truck drivers, and like he almost hits the kid at one point, and the guy's like, "Whoa, oh, you're crazy." Oh, but that's good to know. Like you're not going to slow down for anything, are you?
So you're down to hit a kid if
all right, that'll
also
get us there.
Was there ever any explanation as to why they stored the nitroglycerin 200 miles away from the drilling site?
The nitro shack, yeah, I don't.
Yo, the Nitro Shack, dope coffee bar.
Yeah, it's like literally like this little disembodied shack in the middle of the jungle, 200 miles away from.
Seems like there's a
that's
more
the
convenient
nitroglycerin
place to locate
expert,
it.
The detonation expert has never actually been to the shack. It seems like, and
Seems like
he
nobody
does the-
has, 'cause
he
it's
also
been
does the
sitting there
cocaine
leaking.
thing, like every cop does in the movie, where he puts his finger in it. And he's like, "Yeah, this is this is that pure raw nitroglycerin."
Yeah, he's tasting it. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I've had enough. Let me just let me get
Put some on his teeth.
that
Yeah.
nitroglycerin. We want to do letterbox one-liners.
Forrest, I would love to. So, Adam, Letterboxd, of course, is a social media site. It's a site for film lovers to talk at with and to each other about the movies they love, movies they didn't love, maybe the movies they stored in a Nitro Shack 200 miles away from the main action. And, of course, everybody loves talking about it. Everyone gets to have their say, not just Siskel's and Eberts of the world. It's an open source democracy. Of course, best expressed succinctly, not like the intro of Sorcerer. That is, working your chat five.
It's best expressed as the Mexico guy, not as the French or the the
Exactly.
Roy Scheider guy.
more assassin, not gangster movie in a bottle. Succinctly, tightly, working your chat five and through the brick wall. These are the letterbox one-liners for Sorcerer. Let's go. Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe would eat this up.
Or I could see Undercover Boss, like that one show you can put your boss undercover in the thing, and he's like, wait, we're doing this, and like, because it's the guy you'd have to assume it's the guy that's nowhere near this, you know what I mean, in the United States, like city there. And he's like, we're doing what with trucks and fucking night? This is not safe. Also,
with a big, obviously fake mustache or something. Where, what? Like, how do you think that fools anyone? Yeah. What are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad?
No, it's got to be. What are we? Some kind of the Suicide Squad 2019.
Exactly.
But yeah, they are.
They're pretty much, yeah. That's just accurate.
Oh.
Note to self: don't rob the mob run church on bingo night. It's true. These are the life lessons we learned from cinema, folks.
Yeah, I just love too that like the bingo night happened right before that wedding.
Yeah, it's like bingo night and wedding. Like, what kind of like
Also, it was the wrong church too, right? It wasn't even the right church.
No, it was the right. It was the right church, but it ends up being the guy's the mob boss's church, which is not the place you want to rob. And he's like, he killed my brother. My brother's name was Tommy. We were born in a tiny town in by the Jersey Shore. And I just want to tell you about it a little bit before I go after this guy. Oh, he's gone. I've been doing so much exposition. He managed to get away.
Must have been the right church. Must have been the wrong night. Great movie about life as a full-time freelancer. I think we can all relate to that.
Don't worry, guys. I got a gig. What's the gig? I'm driving nitroglycerin in trucks.
But I make my own hours. I can go on tour. Yeah. Oh, okay,
and they're going to give me wages. They're going to give me. I'm not unionized, but they're going to give me a nice wage. Apparently,
that's my understanding. Would have been more suspenseful if there was traffic behind them beeping, trying to pass the whole
time. This fucking guy.
It's like you again. How are we gonna get?
Learn to drive.
He ends up stuck behind the fucking gangsters that are like trying to find him. But like they don't get it's him. They're like, oh, this fucking guy.
And then after he loses the hat, that's when they recognize him.
Where we're going, we definitely need roads. Holy shit.
Dude, and the road, I like that in both movies, but especially in Wages of Fear, but in this movie too, like the roads get worse and worse, and they're like they show you like, no, the road gets bad here. Like I already know, like it's mapped out or whatever. Like the road's gonna get bad here. And of course they one up that in this movie with the there actually has to hack through the jungle at some points.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's literally just a tree now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
This is how my parents said they went to school every day.
in the freezing cold also somehow.
Yeah, there was snow too.
Jobs are the worst.
And that's why nobody wants to work anymore.
Amen, amen. Those are the Letterboxd one-liners for Sorcerer. Please follow Moving Extravaganza on Letterboxd. Nobody wants to truck anymore over there, Forrest. That's your host. I am Conan, Sweaty Dynamite Neutron. I'm all over that stuff. Watching the highbrow, the midbrow. Take the Criterion Challenge with me. That seems like a bunch of people actually started doing it after I mentioned it last episode. So you can follow along with me on there while we do that. Covering all the new movies. Probably more than other folks on here, unless we cover it for the show. Of course, J. Andrew Greyhound World. To watch all the weirdest stuff, so you don't have to, or maybe so you can.
You messed that up a little bit. You should have said, "Speaking of the lowbrow." I thought that's where you go. You're like, I watch the midbrow, the highbrow, and you're like, he watches the fucking lowbrow.
It was implied. I didn't need to give you the gangster explanation for that.
Andy's killed my fucking brother. It was my church. I bought that church in 1968. You know, my family had
it was a tough deal. We couldn't raise the capital. Oh my god, I don't care. Can we just get to the part with the truck?
Here's a flashback.
There's a flashback within a flashback.
Yeah, who the fuck was the editor for this movie?
I assume.
No, he edited it. Billy Friedkin edited it.
I think Friedkin edited it.
There you go. Yeah.
He's like, no. Keep it in. Keep the exposition. I think we need more of it. We should have that gangster say some more stuff. We should have that gangster give his family tree.
Yeah, we need to do reshoots. We need to do some pickup shots.
Yeah.
J. Andrew Greyhound World. Watch all the weird stuff so you don't have to, or maybe so you can. Either way, it's all right there spelled out. And there you go. Greyhound, take us away with the plugs, please.
All right, you're watching us on YouTube right now, so please do those YouTube things like comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and of course, watch the video to the end so other movie fans can find us. And you also get that great Conan Neutron song at the end there. We're on various social media sites. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're not on Grindr. Why did I almost say Grindr?
Hey, well, some of us may or may not be on Grindr. You don't know if we're not on Grindr.
Why is that the one you thought of? Well, you
Movie Night Extravaganza just pinged me.
It was True Social or Grindr. I don't know.
There's a movie night in my area.
It's wild. But yeah, we're on a lot of social media sites.
Oh yeah, is that your recovery? Oh yeah, we're on a bunch of different social media sites. Oh yeah, that's good, real good.
Yeah,
solid work.
But yeah, Hive, Mastodon. Anyways, maybe I'll just move on. We have a Patreon. You could support us over on Patreon. That way, that helps this show run and me do the plugs like the beginning of this freaking movie and help us live.
Yeah, 50 more patrons and the plugs will become more professional. Yeah.
Yes. And you
but that's what it takes.
access.
He's doing this as a bit, people. It's a long game.
Oh, well, who knows? By the time we get 50 people, I'll actually be better at this.
Dare to dream.
Maybe. Yeah. There we go. But yeah, if you do join, you have access to all of our after parties, whenever you want to. You can go back and be like, what did they do for the Muppet movie? And then you'll listen to it like, oh my dear God.
I remember.
Why did I do that?
That was a wild one.
Yeah, that was.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I think it was Smash or Pass with the Muppets. It was a wild night. But Conan, you got Protonic Reversal this week.
I do. Martin Bisi, legendary producer, engineer. See, Adam knows who he is. Herbie Hancock's Rocket probably is the most famous thing that he's done, but like classic Sonic Youth records, Insane. Yep, I ran a studio with Bill Laswell and Eno.
Yeah,
too, and really interesting guy. New York legend, kind of the guy who recorded all the no wave bands and stuff. Really interesting fella.
That's awesome.
So you're interviewing him?
Yeah, he's on the show this week.
Oh, awesome! I'm gonna make a note of that.
Yeah, that's on Thursday night on Conan Neutron's YouTube channel.
Yep.
So turn this off and turn
because look right. On the Protonic Reversal channel. My channel is like there's like 20 people subscribed to it. I never put anything on it, but like the Protonic Reversal channel, definitely subscribe to that.
Yes. Yeah, there's also lots of great interviews too. If and trust me, Adam, you're going to want to check out some of these interviews that he's done. He's done 300 over 300 episodes, and there are
318
some
this week.
Yeah, so some absolute bangers from Jerry Casale has been in a few, and he said like everybody from the Melvins.
Yeah, Tony Visconti, David Bowie's producer's been on. James Williamson of the Stooges. It's been a lot. I've been doing this show for like 9 years.
No,
that's what I'm saying. Impressive. So when I see NWR just like fucking blowing it, I'm like, dude, like dial it. All you have to do is dial it back. He's the guy.
Conan actually did the first podcast. Really listeners were they were listening to Vitrola at the time in the thing, and they're like, I got this new thing for the Vitrola. I don't know, it's called a podcast, and they're like, I'll turn it on. And like,
it was in the first hour of this podcast actually that we talked about that. It was all the backstory that you didn't get to hear.
No, and they're like, oh, he's having on the guy that wrote The Entertainer, the ragtime.
Scott Joplin, yeah.
They're like, so when you thought of that melody, what went through your mind? And he's like,
that'd be a good bit, like somebody putting a 78 with like the stylus, like the big bulby stylus down, and they move the ear over, and like you hear the shh, it's all scratchy. That's a good bit.
It's like when I come up with music, there's only one thing in mind: broads dancing. If the broads get up and dance, I'm happy. Sometimes they even show their ankles. The real name of the song is The Ankle-tainer.
And then you have to change the 78 to hear the next part of the interview.
And then you just have like the sound effect of just the changing of the 78.
Yeah.
Let's hear a sampling of his music. Oh, change it again.
It's like the whole no music time at all. Anyway, whatever. That's a good bit. Proton Conversal, everybody. Subscribe to it. Also on all the regular podcast platforms as well.
It's called Protonic Reversal because you had to reverse the 78.
Exactly. You got to flip it over if you want to hear the rest of the interview.
Exactly. And of course, you're
only going to hear half of it if you watch the first. It's like just watching the first part of this and think it's a gangster movie.
This is side A. Side A is just his Conan's introductions about what the show is about. Like,
that's a little bit.
But yeah, also Bandcamp. neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. You get all of Conan Neutron's music, and also check out Action Chief, also on Bandcamp. I don't remember. Or is it as actionchief.bandcamp.com?
Just the solos.
I don't have any of that stuff handy. It's all like over the other side of the room.
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, it's all available. There's tour t-shirts and stuff up. And we got these art prints for Action Chief. But I think I showed them on the episode Tony was on, so whatever, that's fine. If you like Action Chief, look like which nobody people like, what's that?
Yeah,
if you like solos and you wanted just solos,
you will be disappointed because that's not what this is. It's a clever title. The record's called Just the Solos, Adam. That's
you get a 1-star review, and it's like, I came here for solos. I wanted just solos. This is not just solos. This title is misleading. I'm leaving 1 star for that. I mean, the music is good, but it's not all solos. That's what
just wasn't what I expected. No stars.
It's kind of like when I watched Sorcerer, and I assumed it was going to be a sequel to The Exorcist.
This is going to be about sorcery, and it totally wasn't. It's about trucks.
I thought this was the newest J.K. Rowling adaptation of Sorcerer. I thought we were going to learn.
Harry Potter and
I got to give myself credit for a fake bad review. I thought this was going to be about sorcery, but it was about trucks. I feel like that's pretty good because that wasn't planned material. That wasn't planned. That's top of mind here. Thank you.
I mean, that's a good one.
I mean, I thought that Stephen King's
one-liner.
It's funny because I always thought that Stephen King's Trucks was about.
And it's turned around. Around on it.
I thought Transformers was going to be a movie about electricians,
and it was about transgendered folks. And I was totally disappointed.
I thought it was a Lou Reed album.
Exactly.
But they made Transformers woke. They're changing genders now.
And I'll have a bunch of tour dates announced later this month, including Caterwall. Monday is a Caterwall announcement. So
that, of course, is all cat. It's all cat concert series that it happens at a feral colony,
which is happening right now behind them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, they praising your stuff on cat Twitter.
They're both looking at me like,
yep. Well,
I need to plug Adam.
Yeah.
I got to plug Adam. Because Adam needs to be plugged. And y'all definitely need to check out Adam's
why
new
did you,
album.
Why did you say it? Why were you like, this is the way I'm going to say it? Did you think about that?
I don't know. No, I didn't think about that. Do you think I think about anything in this segment? I just open my mouth and let words come out. And sometimes
I think we're all thinking about when it's done and when.
Plug him up. Plug. Give him the plug.
I got some holes and they're leaking. So come on.
See, this is if it had been Andy's other friend that was on the show, I would have said that, and then Adam would have quit left the podcast.
Wait, was that Justin? Or
no? No, don't worry about it.
No, it's Harrison Ford. He talked about before the show.
Yeah, it was Harrison Ford. It was
it was his buddy Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention your album Music for No Tomorrow, which is phenomenal. I don't know how you did it, but like for the past couple of years, every year you've put out an album even better than the previous one. Like that's nuts.
Oh, man.
That's pretty great. You can barely remember the band name from me.
And I appreciate when a guest has like an album, because I put it in the intro, which the intro was the same recording I did for Quiet Earth when we did that. That's why it was so close to the microphone. I was trying not to do Quiet Earth. I was trying to do Loud Earth. But no, but I like when you can be like,
good. Yeah.
I like when I could be like, go listen to their album right now. I like that little plug.
The audience doesn't, but it's nice to be able to do that.
The audience is like, get to the conversation already. Jesus.
Yeah, it's still pretty fresh. It's like,
yes.
I mean, it's like a year old at this point, but it came out like a month ago, a little over a month ago.
Yeah, and it was like #1 in 8 different categories on that Bandcamp Friday.
I think it was like 6 hours, but hey, that's
whatever. Still, it's
6
awesome.
decent hours, yeah.
Yeah,
well, my albums are all #1 in this household, so
there you go.
Album listen off. Let's go. Whichever album makes the broads want to dance. That's the one that I
hey, whatever makes them show a little calf.
This album is downright pornographic.
We're gonna be working blue here.
Hot snakes.
I did want to also tell people to check out the movie Caucasoid, which you have a part in.
You do. It sounds like a classic Andy. What the what? But like this is actually relevant. This is one of this is actually relevant. I know you've been wanting to say that for so long.
Yes.
When I first heard that title, I was like, oh god, dude, because
it's like the Sorcerer of whatever that movie is.
Well, yeah, only it actually does make sense. I didn't realize that the Caucasoid is an outdated derogatory term for like white folk, like a white dude.
Really? I want to start using that.
Had no idea.
Now they take you down if you say yeah. Whoa. You can't say that on the Twitch. We're on the Twitch. You can't say that on the Twitch. You get banned.
Get demonetized.
I was gonna say the C word, but after my jokes earlier, I don't know. Like,
yeah, you can't quote Devo songs anymore.
Yeah, exactly. They really. I'm censored.
Wait, wasn't Gerald just on here too?
Yep.
Yeah, Jerry was on. Yeah. I coaxed him into telling that story, which basically amounted like he said something on Twitter and got banned. So it wasn't that interesting of a story, but he still appreciated it.
I got banned for telling Tim Pool fucking.
No, I know what it was. I'm just saying. Look, this is like the backstory.
Not
of
everybody.
The mafia.
Not everybody. No, I was gonna say not everybody likes those tweets. You're wrong. Most people do, but not everybody.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, everyone likes those tweets. Everyone likes Dario Argento.
Everybody loves my tweets.
Actually,
well, no. Not everybody, but I mean, they're good tweets, but not everybody likes them.
Yeah.
Well, it's mostly Dario Argento's tweets.
Exactly. His tweets would be Instagram, all pictures, right? Right.
Hey, look at this guy over here. He's coming up with the jokes.
That kills on Mastodon.
All right.
So
yeah. Can we tell people how to watch Caucasoid?
I don't even know how. If you have something else to say for like the next minute, I can find out because I have no idea. I don't think it's on YouTube. I think you have to actually what you want to find. His name is Nick Verdi, Verdi, and he's on Twitter and Instagram, and I think both of his handles are just like at Nick Verdi. He'll
Just ask that guy.
he'll share it with you via like Google Drive or something. He's trying to keep it off of like streaming sites because he wants it to be, as underground as possible.
Yeah.
but he'll like
theory of obscurity.
Yeah, he'll just share it with you.
He'll send you to like a dark website where you can give someone some Bitcoin to see it.
Yeah, it's
you got to give Bitcoin to the online goblin.
Yeah, and then a silent film reel is sent to your house with a projector, and there's a Victrola with a 78 that you have to put on to. Yeah.
Honestly, that would be fucking hilarious. That would be hilarious if you got onto like a website. Like the only way to see it, you're like, oh, so I can watch it online, right? You're streaming. They're like, it's not streaming, but you go to this website, and then a guy comes to your house. He's not like a UPS or
you gotta take a boat, and there's streaming. You gotta go down the river.
His
literally,
plan,
he thought streaming was a what a thing.
Yeah,
like his marketing plan is he's gonna send it to Charlie Sheen, like the guinea pig movies, and like
there you go, folks.
Drum up some cross. But yeah.
All right, so I guess slide into the director's DMs. I guess is
yeah.
the answer.
Yeah, I don't think it's like on YouTube or anything like that. Yeah,
or even like a paid site where you can like rent it.
Not yet. I think his next movie, which I have a speaking role in, which I don't have in Caucasoid.
Yeah, you're just a corpse.
Yeah, I'm just a corpse. Such is life. But
I feel like we've had guests on the show like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm halfway becoming a corpse now. We've been talking about these plugs so long.
So yeah, the live show, right, Andy? Give them Revolution.
Yeah, Give Them a Revolution coming up January 22nd. That's in New York City. It's going to be Ben Burgess, Jason Miles, Sam Cedar, Emma Viglin. Geez, you think I'd know? Matt Leck, David Griscom, and a few more people.
Including me. I'm going to be announcing. Which is new development.
Oh, see, this is
whole show's going to be there. Well, not yet, unless you want to show up, but we could probably find something for you too. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, all of us are going to be doing different things like to help out with the show.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's going to be an absolute blast. It is at the Cutting Room just a few blocks from the Empire State Building. So if you're around the New York area, you want to come meet me, see a bunch of really great podcasters, talk about politics for a couple hours. Hey, there's something to do right there
in old New York, which they say is a hell of a town.
Yes.
I heard that on Conan's famous 1930 interview.
Yeah, the first podcast. Yeah. Some people want to escape from it, not me. That was Monday.
I wanna escape from it. That's why I watched that movie and took notes, and because of a podcast. But I mean, fuck podcasts. I was trying to escape from New York, but I'm gonna be there filming it.
Yeah, so you can come by and meet the whole crew. You can meet the crew from this one. You can meet the crew from the other shows. It's going to be fun.
You can meet everybody.
Don't put a drink down on my equipment table unless you Sam Cedar.
And don't look me in the eye.
I'll show up and beatbox between each.
Yeah, why not? Apparently, it's a variety act. I'm like, what am I doing? All right, sure, I'll do that. Yeah.
I think Jason would be down with that.
Just let me know.
But yeah. So, are we going over to those final thoughts? All right.
Oh, you're hosting, so maybe we are.
Actually, I have one more 20-second clip to play that I have Billy Friedkin,
well.
and then let's go to and then I have a musical number that I put together. I'm gonna be doing tap dance.
And NWR, just stepping in it.
All right, this is the final one before we go to final thoughts.
5.
Would they have financed the movie with an unknown actor? Do you think?
No.
Okay, so you needed a star.
No, Roy wasn't a star, but he was well known.
Right. Okay, but you couldn't just cast your neighbor.
Well, who would anyway? Why would I cast my neighbor? He was a schmuck. I wouldn't even give him a cup of sugar.
But the point is that you were still in a situation where you needed a certain cast.
Amazing.
I wouldn't even give my neighbor a job.
He was about to give his neighbor a backstory.
Exactly. Like, I honestly, after seeing that interview, I'm like, is NWO on the spectrum? Maybe. Like,
No,
like
I was going to mention that.
No,
he doesn't
absolutely.
seem to be able to read social
think
cues, right?
I read that he's colorblind.
That's amazing because like all his movies is all bright neon colors, right?
I mean, that's one spectrum that he's not on.
Yeah, because the reason that he does that is because he can't see the colors otherwise. So it's
that's crazy because that's like his whole aesthetic. Like he's kind of like the guy that does that, and like
it's almost like
I can't make cinema anymore. I lost my color guy.
Yeah, you ever see a colorblind painter do their thing? Like they use this such garish colors, but they're fascinating paintings because like it's all in the contrast.
Right, it's different.
He gets into a fight at a bar for saying his color guy, and they're like, "You're what?" And then they're like, "No, it's the guy that shows color. Like I can't see colors." Person of color.
No, I'm against a Zionist.
This is my friend. He's a person of colors. Like he just. But Adam, I want to hear your final thoughts. Anything we need to get to, or you want to expand upon, or just fate. You can leave it up to fate, I guess.
So I actually hadn't seen this until last night, and like I watched it, loved it. Immediately picked up on the fate themes, and then I got really high before going to bed and had a panic attack.
Yeah,
it took me like 2 hours to fall asleep, and then had nightmares all night. And I don't movies don't usually give me nightmares. I feel like this like perfectly tapped into like the kind of the existential hopelessness that probably that I probably fear more than nearly anything else. And so I feel like it actually worked as a horror film better than The Exorcist, but
this could actually happen. Like they might actually put me in a nitroglycerin truck. This is scarier than anything I could.
Well, because it's just obviously Friedkin, and who wrote the script?
He co-wrote it with another screenwriter. I'm trying to.
I can't remember. I remember looking it up, but I don't think they did much else. And anyway, I feel like they made everything that those four characters were escaping from,
Wailing Green.
Yeah. And like their backstories.
He wrote the Wild Bunch.
Oh, he did the Wild Bunch?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Damn.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I mean, we're all the movie. It's also about it's about risk assessment. Like we all kind of we hone in to like these sort of over the top scenarios that are never going to happen to us, and we place so much emphasis on that throughout life. Like oh no, I don't want to get bitten by a venomous spider, or I don't want to I'm gonna. Most people have a fear of flying, or a lot of people have a fear of flying versus like getting into a car accident.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Alanis Morissette last night, and I'm afraid of flying because I'm afraid of the irony of the plane going down.
and I feel like all of the scenarios presented in this movie, they're pretty ridiculous and over the top. Like I said, it's Murphy's Law presented in the most extreme, almost cartoonish manner. But we're all doing that. We're all like running from these things that we feel are, gonna spell our demise. And it's never that. It's always, like when you're least expecting it, like the tire blows out and you kind of tumble down the cliff and the truck explodes, and it's just willy-nilly and it's whatever.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to put us all on edge for that entire movie, and it's like so many things to kill them throughout it, and then like having these moments where it's like the one time there's any breathing space, that's the thing that does it, and it's like of course it is, like of course that's the way that it goes, but like but just to have it like there's no great climax, there's no great like they're on the bridge and then suddenly the falls off the bridge. It's just like, oh, the tire blew, like yeah. Of course it did, like I made it through this giant tribulation, and then I'm going down the thing.
or like Dominguez like finally makes it through, and at the very end, just because he wants like that extra 5 minutes for that dance, his past catches up with him. That's like, someone who quit smoking cigarettes after 40 years.
Yeah.
And they think they've escaped it, and then 20 years later, they just get like.
And the plane's like, the plane will like leave when you're ready to leave. Like, is like that's like what's and it's like, oh yeah, if you just had like left right then, you'd be fine.
Yeah, you would have been fine. Yeah. It's
there's other movies that have tried to explore that, but I think this movie does it well because it's not actively exploring that, right? Like it's not like the butterfly effect, which I mean, it's interesting.
Final
concept,
Destination.
Not a
this is like a proto Final Destination.
Yes,
in a way.
Except for they agree to the thing that's going to kill them. It's not like, oh wow, everybody in the picture's dying. It's like, hey, we'll drive these explosive trucks. What could happen? What could go wrong?
I feel like Deer Hunter explored it a little bit too.
Yeah, I could see that, and thematically, like it kind of has similar overtones for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think it's. I kind of feel like going on a Friedkin kick now. I'm just like rewatching. Well, maybe not Jade or The Guardian, but
we watched
French Connection's great. French Connection totally holds up.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And,
I haven't seen The Exorcist in forever, but that's. I mean,
I've still never seen To Live and Die in LA, so I have to check that out.
And when you watch French Connection, then watch our Clown Classic episode of French Connection.
Sure.
Yeah. That sounds good.
You will enjoy our re-envisioning of French Connection with Fred Flintstone.
The Fred Connection.
The Fred Connection. That's right.
I don't even think I thought of that line when we were actually doing it. Wilma. Classic.
It all was based on the chase scene where he's in the car chasing after the subway. And
and we imagined it with he has to do his feet. So
watch that episode to see how
yeah.
We're not going to relive it.
Because it's already over 2 hours. Conan, let's hear some final thoughts.
Yeah, this is a film of casual cruelty where life is cheap, and that gets over in a major way. Even if like you get in Sorcerer versus Wage of Fear, you get less context about the company and less time with the characters to feel their desperation, but you do get more in the way of backstory, which is what he wanted to show. There's a lot of dudes in peril. It's definitely dudes, capital D. In Wages of Fear, there is actually Vera Clouseau, which is also the director's wife. But she's awesome. But there's not really a lot of female characters here. This is maybe one of the most heavy movies we've ever covered, and we've covered Predator. This film has a superior action by far. The trucks going over the perilous rope bridge is like a cinema all time. And again, I love that it was so troubled to be able to get there, because that just shows how much he was dedicated towards this vision. And in his way, trying to surpass the original and do something different with it. They're both widely underrated and mostly underseen films, though. Like, let's not kid ourselves, even at Cinema Files. And I think that's notable.
And the thing that I think is interesting that I was reading about is he actively went to the Dominican Republic hoping to like have like a Coppola experience as Coppola was filming Apocalypse Now. Like his idea is like, oh, we need to travel and do like a big travel movie like that. But then this movie got released 2 years before Apocalypse Now did, and Apocalypse Now obviously has like the backstory of like running out of money and then Coppola literally losing his mind. But he kind of lost his mind at the end of this because he had malaria and he didn't know. And like after the screening, he was like so sick that he lost 50 pounds. He went to a doctor. Like, no, you've had malaria this whole time.
How's that dude still alive?
Yeah,
he's like 90, and he like made it through malaria. Man.
Well, other people on the cast made it through gangrene. Fucking, there was injuries. The injuries got infected. There weren't doctors. Like this movie, like it's horrific. Once I read the word gangrene, I'm like, yeah.
It should be enough. Yeah, look, Friedkin is great, and I'm glad this movie has been sort of rehabilitated and re-examined by time. It does a thing that, and I know it's not supposed to be a remake, but it does what remakes should do, which is do something a little bit different without changing what made it great in the first place. What made this in the first place is this is like a masterclass in stress and anxiety. So if you haven't seen either one, I would say definitely see Sorcerer first. But take care, because both will put you under major anxiety. Indian's a massive bummer. here as well, but that fits the theme of the movie, which is just like excess brutality. If this had not opened against Star Wars, and if it had been called literally almost anything else, I think it would have been a much more successful film. But it's a very good one, and it's a super interesting conversation, to have about it, and it's a movie worth discussing, frankly, because there's a lot to discuss here, and that's without NWR just stepping in it for like apparently an hour and a half, which is what that interview was.
I mean, I personally think truck drivers are the real sorcerers because they managed to get the packages there on time. But Andy, final thoughts.
I got to say the graphic design on the logo of the oil company looks like a Nazi eagle, and I think that allows the movie to say a lot more than it actually does, or even the intro actually says. Where they give the whole mafia backstory, but
they should have just showed a logo. They should have just showed a mafia logo.
Yeah. They just need this Sopranos logo just flash across the screen. It's like, it's 1977, but I get that.
Well, the thing about the the Trujillos were like the brutal kind of Nazi inspired fascist dictators of the Dominican Republic. So he's basically just saying, yo, Gulf and Western's a fucked up company while using all of their facilities to fucking film this. He's making that same reference point, which is like, dude, you're getting real close. I love it. You're getting real close to the line.
It's even more overt in Wages of Fear, but with less personal animus. Like it's pretty wild that's whole.
Well, it's literally remaking Wages of Fear, which is a very anti-gringo company movie, but it's doing that with gringo property to be
to use the actual places is kind of wild, right? And also something I forgot to mention too, much like Escape from New York, which is just like one of the all-time great, just like, hey, you know what this is like with when you read the synopsis, you're like, are you going to like this movie? Well, here's what it's about. Oh my God, that sounds great. I mean, when you think about these are desperate men trying to move dynamite through the jungle. You're like, what? That's crazy.
Bombs on a truck. That's all they needed to call it.
Let's call it Bombs on a Truck. It would have made tens of millions.
Billy Friedkin's new movie, Bombs on the Truck.
So also that eagle logo was lifted directly from the logo for the company that the main financier of the movie.
Yeah, Gulf and Western.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And they own Paramount too, which he's basically shitting on the guy that owns Paramount. He's gonna need to finance his next movies, but he's like, I'm Billy Friedkin. I can do whatever I want.
I'm a golden god. I'm NWR calling my own movie a masterpiece.
But I will end this episode with even if you don't think you need to join a union, you absolutely need to join a union.